I'm going to mute myself when I'm not talking. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So, hey, everybody, we're about to get started. So, hello to everybody watching us tonight. But yeah, so uh, I'm gonna do my intro and then have Kelly come in and mute myself every
Well,
time.
here's hoping the internet works. All I'm
Yeah,
gonna say. I'm not
yeah.
gonna get into it this time, but this is some crazy stuff today. So here's hoping that this is a good show, because that's all I want. It's the one win I need today.
May we live in good times. Yes. So, all right, everybody, we're gonna get started. Come down in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Zach Joyner, webmaster of Spidey-Dude.com and executive producer for the Spidey Dude Radio Network. And welcome back to another review episode of Make Mine Mayday. Thank you for watching and listening to this episode. But before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon page and our Patreon subscriber, Vinkman. Thank you, sir, for your support. And if you want to see what all the fuss is about, head over to patreon.com/SpideyDude Network for more information. Perks include that shout out at the beginning of the episodes and getting episodes dropping earlier. That'll be coming more and more later this month. And if you like this show, check out our episodes of our other shows, such as the Spidey Dude Experience, where we cover modern Amazing Spider-Man stories and all news related to Spidey's world. That's all available also on YouTube. Amazing Spider-Man Classics, which covers the classic Spider-Man stories of yesteryear, with Season 2 coming out later this year, starring Hobby, our good friend Hobby. Clone Saga Chronicles, a show that is important somewhat to this edition of the show and chronicles the tales of the Spider-Man Clone Saga of yesteryear, as well as the modern takes on those characters. And Spectacular Radio, a show that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon and gives you the fan perspective as well. All this and more will be available on your favorite podcatchers, and look out for more new shows coming out later this year. And remember, we want your voice to be heard, of course. There are multiple different ways you can do that. You can always leave us an email if you prefer. Leave an email at makemymayday@gmail.com or SpideyDudeRadioNetwork@gmail.com. Another way, if you want to be on the show and have your voice on the show, is to leave us a voicemail at 818-925-6631. Just be sure to tell us what show you're calling about and where you're from. Or if you're listening, you can always join us live, and we will take your comments on air, just like us, like on YouTube, or you can follow us on Facebook, and be sure to turn on the reminders and or notifications. And finally, leave us a review on your favorite podcatcher, and we'll do our best to read it on the show in a future episode. For those of you listening to the audio version, please excuse references to the visual aids and or our live comments, as these shows are live streamed in most cases to our YouTube channel, Facebook, and Twitter simultaneously. So with that out of the way, I'm here to introduce the star of the program, Miss Kelly McDaniel. Hi, Kelly.
Hi. I think both. Well, really, the star of the podcast is right there.
She really is.
I am just a co-host.
You embody the character in so many ways.
Okay. So here's a fun story, at least for this time, that I can discuss on this crazy day. Went to Starbucks, which still have said Starbucks, and I had left my radio on, apparently, and so when I came back, I heard my radio, and it was no other than Just My Imagination by the Cranberries with my Starbucks. And there's a reason I grabbed Starbucks from one of the issues that we're reading. And I'm pretty sure it was the first time I'd ever heard the word Starbucks when I first read it. So fun times. But I was like, this is a weird, very weird Mayday moment. You're muted, Zach.
Sorry. I'm used to hitting the button on the board. I'm not using the board tonight. Sorry. Yeah, serendipitous today that you happened to go to Starbucks, because I remember reading that.
Well, I mean, I had just enough time to go to Starbucks before getting ready to record, so that was the idea.
So what issues are we covering tonight?
We are covering 12 through 17.
Yes, and I've got them in my hands. They're all in the well, not all of them. A couple of the last two issues, I think, are in Complete Collection Volume 2.
Yeah.
But the first ones, 12 13, 14, 15, which I have 2 copies of for some reason. I don't know why. 16.
I have multiple copies of 15 too. I don't know. I think it accumulates. I think it's like tribbles.
Issue 15 is the tribbles issue, and then the double-sized spectacular issue 17. So
I also have multiples of that.
You have multiples of multiples. So
I do. But yeah, no, I'm excited. There's also too, like, we didn't really touch on it last episode on why we didn't include 12 in last episode like we should have. But it's because it does tie into a lot of the other stories we're reading here, and it kind of made more sense to at least cut it off and start from 12 to 17.
Right.
And then we should be good going. I don't think I do any more weird cutting of until later, way later. So it should be okay.
I've gone back also and double checked a few things. So I'll be doing the recaps tonight, and then I'll do the recap, go to Kelly, and then I'll give my thoughts on each issue, and we'll go from there. So yes. All right. If you want me to get started, we'll start with issue 12.
Well, remember, we haven't done housekeeping. You just kind of ran into the reviews, and we were going to talk about the fact that there is something really, really missing on the internet right now.
Yeah. So thank you for reminding me. So Kelly got a message from somebody the other day and told them that the Spider-Girl message board on comic boards, of our comic boards, is no more. And so I went and looked. And sure enough, they have shut down the Spider-Girl board. They've looked like they had shut down several of those boards. So it's not just like they're discriminating against Spider-Girl. It's literally they shut down, like, I think a handful of the slower boards mostly.
Okay. I mean, do you think that it came? So it was probably just the company just cutting it down because it didn't have a lot of traffic.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. That's from what I was looking at from the boards that were. I asked you to
research this. I asked you to go look at this and ask people.
So I looked at the. Here's what I did. I went and looked at the boards because like there's still a link that if you click on it, it still has the lists of all these boards, and if you're clicking on certain ones, they're not there anymore. Spider-Girl's one of them. So I remember the last time I went on there, it was very, very slow. There wasn't a whole lot of like traffic on it. And it was nothing like it used to be. Like the guys that we interviewed in episode 1, you know, when they were involved, it was very much the happening place. So like it's very much an end of an era for Spider-Girl fandom, but I hate it that it's gone because it was such a rallying point.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thing. Like when I was gutted when I got the message because I I wasn't very active on it. As we discussed, I was very young when it was very active and not allowed. Well,
the letters for me, the letters that I wrote that are in like Spider-Girl comics in the letters pages, I wrote them on the message board, and that's how they were published. So for me, like that it's a very big, like, sad day whenever, like, I didn't know until Kelly told me, and I was like, wait, what?
And I didn't learn until it was like way late at night for no real reason. And then I messaged you.
Then she like sends the bat signal up. It was like, oh my God, this is gone. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, for some reason, because my sleep schedule is not.
I didn't even type it out. I just like sent you the screenshot of it, and it was just like, what the heck?
Yeah, she was so gutted she couldn't say the words. She just like sent the.
Just screenshot it, just like whatever. But yeah, no, and that's. I mean, I'm glad we at least got to talk to them, especially made it that first issue. I'm glad that we made that important.
I tried to reach out,
which
to
is
the
something
owners.
I wanted.
Yeah, I tried to reach out to the owners of Alvaro. I didn't get a response back. So, I double checked it before I left.
There was a situation where someone passed away.
Yes, one of the so Alvaro had a partner named Dave, and he passed away late last year in December. So I don't know if they got rid of some boards just because I know the archive all that stuff was a lot. Especially on those I know they kept the Spidey board. They finally updated it because like the Spidey board was really like looking pretty sad. And like I remember the thing about the Spider-Girl board too was like all the stuff that John and Jeff had done was still up there. They hadn't done anything different in so long. So I really didn't know who I didn't know the moderator well enough to reach out to him. And so like I say, if anybody knows any of those guys, send us a line, send us an email, and we'd like to talk to them. And you know, kind of just
make sure everything. Yeah, make sure it's okay. In the meantime, if you do want to talk about Spider-Girl, I am pretty much always open and down to have hour-long conversations through text on Twitter. There's also the subreddit for Spider-Girl. So, you know, just type in Spider-Girl, not Spider-Girls. Please don't do that. You don't want to see that. It will scar you for life. But Spider-Girl on the subreddit, and you should be good. So,
yeah,
you know,
sorry.
No, you're fine. So, yeah, so just, you know, if you still want to talk about it, there are other places beyond the comic board, comic book message board, but
yeah.
That's gone, and that was a shock. I wasn't expecting it to just not be there one day.
That's the Reddit at r/Spider-Girl. There's no hyphen, I don't think. So
no, there is not a hyphen. Just do not put an S at the end, please. Just don't.
That's a whole different.
It brings you to a whole other situation that you don't want to see. Has nothing to do with Spider-Man at all, and more just to do with spiders in. Awkward.
Oh, so if you have arachnophobia, don't
well,
go there.
I mean, make you be confused. So yeah, so just there is that. And then let's see. Also on my little news there is a new Captain America miniseries coming out with a really interesting name, United States of Captain America, and it is going to star Steve, John Walker, Bucky, and Sam. But the writer, the writer and a couple of the artists that are on it have said that we will see other Captain America characters. I would assume, hopefully, from the America Corps. Which was the last miniseries we saw American Dream in. It's justice for J2. Okay, I'm still a little scared about anybody taking over. You know, because unfortunately, this is not being written by Roger Stern. So no. I'm a little cautious, but
yes, always justice for J2.
I'm just saying is just keep an open ear if you really want. If you want to check it out, it is coming out. So we might see some Shannon make a appearance, hopefully, in this miniseries. But we will see, because we never know. Marvel's kind of always iffy about the MC2. So we'll see. And yeah, with that, that's basically all the news I really have.
So yeah, I did make the joke whenever Kelly. So if you follow us on Twitter, which is at Spidey Dude Radio, is the site Twitter, but then you can always follow her at Make My Mayday. Yeah. So if you follow us on Twitter, I did make the joke about Justice for American Dream. If like you gotta have.
I know, but there's what justice? She's fine.
I know. So I just it felt right after the J2 thing. I was like, hey, listen, like American Dream needs.
There is still no justice for J2.
Listen, I finally, I am gonna email Marvel PR. I'm gonna put that at the very bottom, be like, hey, by the way, justice for J2. There's only this. The last 6 issues aren't unlimited. What's up?
They just need to fix it. Yes. All right. So with that, we can start. Although I do want to say to our YouTube commenter,
Yes.
Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for the very sweet words. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So Kelly Kansu, she jumped on our Spider Dude Experience stream on Wednesday.
Cool.
And so she interacted with us then. So her comment is, I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan of Kelly, and she's the reason I found this channel. So big kudos to her. Well, thank you. And thank you to Kelly, as always, for participating on the channel. So
thanks. Wow.
Both Kellys. See, I'm going to get really confused now.
Yeah,
So,
there's a bunch of Kellys.
Well, yeah.
It's just a thing.
And Finkman says justice for J2.
Of course. So let's go ahead and get into the reviews because we do have a lot to cover. Because, as per usual in a Spider-Girl book, there is a lot.
Yes. All right. We will begin by wrapping up, of course, the first year of Spider-Girl with issue 12. The creative team is consistent throughout the entirety of the issues that we cover this episode. And therefore, I will simply be listing them once, but I will mention the titles of each issue as we go along, as well as when they were released and what the cover date is and where they're collected, so you can find them where they're available at. So start with issue 12. It's called Duel with DarkDevil, written by Tom DeFalco, pencils by Pat Olive, inks by Al Williamson, colors by Christy Steele. Janice Chang is the letterer if you're reading in the complete collection and in the original issues, but if you're reading in the digest, then it's Dave Sharp. I went back and cross-referenced this. So they're collected. This was collected in Spider-Girl Complete Collection Volume 1 and in Spider-Girl Volume 3 Digest. So this was released on July 14th of 99 with a cover date of September 1999. So our issue opens with...
This is my 9th birthday.
Nice. Let's see, how old was I? It was your 9th birthday. It was my 12th? 12. 12. Not quite 12. I was 11. I was going to turn 12 that December. So our issue opens with a training exercise between Peter Parker and Mayday Parker before school. Mayday is riding off the high of facing her dad and Human Torch from last issue, while Peter's a bit distracted by some things at work. Peter asks if May knows what's going on with Phil, and Mayday kind of sort of brushes him off. Mayday feels a bit responsible for the rift between the two and is still pondering this at school when Moose is trying to tell May he's got the feels for Courtney. This, of course, throws Mayday, as well as everybody else, for a loop when Jimmy thinks that he has possession of May somehow and gets in Moose's face. Of course, while trying to do that, he's a Class A klutz via bumping into a blonde-haired dude who isn't Brad. Blondie then gets in Jimmy's face, causing May to break the two up. Jimmy then steps in it by calling May his girl, which, dude, not well played. There's a couple of icky parts in this episode, I'm not going to lie. We'll get to it.
I've got them in my notes.
Moose likes the kid, though. And Mayday is still obviously distracted by her Phil and dad issues. Cut to later in the day when May is trying to clear her head. She's out web-slinging and she bumps into DarkDevil, beating the ever-loving crap out of a lackey. Dee Dee is not playing around this time and has no time for children. Excuse me, sorry. Did I roll my eyes? That pregnant pause was for eye roll.
So I think you rolled your eyes, but you're frozen now for me for a second, where your eyes were like up on the top of your head.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Okay, anyway. And that he tells May that she should stay the heck out of his business. May then takes the guy to the hospital, which of course is the right thing to do, DarkDevil. Seriously. Like seriously. And we first hear the name of KAINE. As May does the right thing, she decides to do it, unfortunately, in front of our favorite Daily Bugle reporter, Miss Moore. She then heads back to the Bugle, where she tells the EIC, Bill Walters, that Spider-Girl dropped off a dude at the hospital who is extremely injured. And this is where we get the first appearance of MC J. Jonah Jameson, wondering if she's a threat or a menace. Meanwhile, back at the station, Mayday asks about KAINE, saying it's for research, which isn't technically lying here, mostly. This does not go well, and Peter loses his ever-loving mind, telling her to drop it, basically. May then bumps into Phil on the way out, and they have a brief exchange where she says she will call him later, and Phil's kind of taken aback by it. Meanwhile, back at the Church Key, the bar that the lackey had told Mayday about, we see the face of KAINE for the first time, stating that his business is personal. After the 2-page milk ad that features a hidden Mayday card with A next as well, we then go back to Midtown High, where our blondie friend who got his hairstyle from watching Home Improvement in the 1990s, apparently also coming back into vogue with the middle part, tries to slide into Mayday's DMs 1999 style. Okay, he actually just asked Mayday to copy.
Why did you? Why? Okay.
I don't know.
Stop. Just stop.
I know. I'm sorry. I was trying to be funny. So Moose and then Brad talk. I'm moving on. Moose and Brad then talk, and May and tells Brad that he may have missed his chance, which, spoiler alert, actually no. May shows up to the Church Key and finds old Hornhead already making friends. Mayday tries to talk sense into him, but this just causes him to get more irate, and the two fight, while awkwardly he tells May throughout this battle that he knows about her spider sense. Confused yet? Trust me, it gets worse. May instinctively repels rubble off of towards DarkDevil's face, and he then says that neither your father or I ever ... ever what, DarkDevil? Ever what? He then leaps up to the top of the barge when it's revealed that the man he's pursuing, of course, is gone. DarkDevil is teed off, and he says thanks for nothing to Mayday, and Mayday did what she set out to do, which was to prevent him from doing something he regretted. Begrudgingly, he then takes his leave via teleportation. May is getting real tired of the game he's playing, obviously, but then suddenly her spider sense starts tingling, but then it starts to fade over time. And then we learn that the mystery man of KAINE is still good at doing what he did best during the Clone Saga. Be a man in the shadows. Finally, our final scene of the issue is where May meets with Phil and talks to him about her new power and what's going on in her life. And that's how the issue ends. According to the letters pages, A Next was the following week. The 99 annual and J2 came out 2 weeks later. And Wild Thing #1 came out the week after that. So,
yes.
Of course, I'll give my thoughts momentarily, but I then turn it over to Kelly, and I will hit the mute button. So I'll not.
Okay. Well, herself. I mean, you can, but you might need to talk because my internet started to go crazy. But yeah,
I'll jump in if I need to.
Yeah. So my main thoughts are, that shirt that she's wearing sure is something. The yellow camo, maybe paisley 60s silk printed shirt from A. Breyer. I remember those shirts. So I don't know. I had a blue one similar from Macy's, so that's all I can think of about this issue is remembering that shirt. And then, of course...
Yeah. I remember, like, a few years later, like, the 70s was kind of coming back. Like, elements of the 70s were coming back in style. So, like...
Oh, that was, like, all 1990. Like, flare jeans, the weird paisley tops, peasant tops, and then all of a sudden it went to like low-rise jeans.
like that. Like Britney Spears did low-rise jeans once. And
Gen Zers, we're not doing it. Not doing it.
Can we meet in the middle?
We've gone through it.
Between the mom jeans and the
regular
low-rise
jeans.
Can we just meet in the middle, folks? Like, let's stop the war. Oh, man, I watch TikTok and I feel so old.
Well,
when I watch TikTok, it's bad. Anyway, continue.
Fair. Anyway, yeah, no. I also really appreciate. I guess maybe I shouldn't say his name, even though we know who it is. But I appreciate the new boy giving Jimmy what's what, because he's been rude for so long and so possessive and so weird, and he needs his ego in check, and so I appreciate someone finally doing it. I also really enjoy the writing technique here, where because May clearly knows nothing about KAINE, she's misspelling KAINE left and right. in her thought bubbles.
Yes.
So I really, really appreciate that part. I think that that's a really good just technique that you don't really see in comics anymore. Because, they want you to know the character right away, but this, really helps you see, no, she's confused. Like, she doesn't know who this is, like, at all. Couldn't spell his name if she tried. And this is why she's not pulling up the proper research and anything like that. So I really do appreciate that. And also, of course, like we knew from last issue as we talked about it, but this is kind of the first time she realizes that she can repel as well as cling to the wall or objects.
Yes.
So.
Yes, it is a landmark issue. Obviously, like I said, it took place 2 weeks before 99 Annual, but because of the KAINE element and it really tying into that, that's why we did it the way we did it, like Kelly explained earlier. So
yeah.
I'll jump into my thoughts right quick. Unlike the rest of the 12 issues of the first year, which had these open endings like in J2 and A Next, it was clear with this issue that the series was obviously continuing. It's a much different approach than the other two, and kind of interesting to read this all at once together. Kind of how different, and obviously they knew that there was going to be an ending, but they obviously do the open ending format, so that's kind of nice. I like how it's setting up issue 12, setting up the subplots for the next several issues. Pat's pencils here are simply divine. Love them. They're great. Al Williamson's inks are so good. The colors are really good in these next few issues. It's a bit of a different color palette, as we go through each of these issues. So I really like that. I know you and I know why DarkDevil is a jerk in this issue.
Oh yeah. It's hindsight. I mean, but the thing is we are trying to read this like it's not. So it's you kind of don't fully get why he is acting this way, other than he's a jerk, which we already knew. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that's also too. May's completely confused. Like, she's like, he's kind of been weird and been jerky to me, but this is like beyond what it's been in the past. That's kind of, it's like, why is he acting this way? Because she's very concerned because he seems stressed. And so it's, she knows it's big. She just doesn't know why.
Mm-hmm. And like I wrote in my notes, I said, in his own way, he's protecting May. However, at the publishing time, no one really knows why, and only that there's a disconnection between him and her dad, which of course by proxy is then her. We won't know this yet in the publishing time, and it's a very nice mystery as you're sitting there reading it. If you're somebody reading this for the first time, like you say, for the record, it would be another 14 months before we would actually learn. The DarkDevil miniseries was cover dated of November 2000 and which was released that following September of the next year publishing. Mr. Blonde Guy is smooth, but also a hothead.
Okay, but he's a hothead for the right reasons.
Yes.
Okay.
I made the joke in my notes. I said, I wonder if he'll be important later.
Huh. I wonder.
His introduction, though, like the way they do this, and like the introduction and all this entire scene really reminds me a lot of how Harry and Gwen were introduced during the Ditko run in ASM. There you had Peter, who was distracted by May's health. Here, the situation with Phil and Peter's got Mayday distracted. And so I like that kind of symmetry there. And I put, honestly, Jimmy needs to check himself. This isn't cool, dude, and you're making yourself look foolish.
And we'll tie into this in later issues, because I have some talking points. But about other things as we get on. Mm-hmm. He's been doing this, but not only him, he's been egged on by Courtney.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about this.
So, there's a whole lot of just like, I totally get it. Like, this would happen in a high school setting. I'm sure we all can remember a time where this totally was a situation where you have like your best friend hyping you up and you are just doing what you really, really want, to see happen. It's not very thoughtful to other people's consent. So
Yeah. Reading this as an adult,
anyway,
reading this as a teenager are kind of two different things, and it's kind of interesting to go back and be like, was I this guy? If I was this guy, I'm so sorry. I need to apologize to a couple people apparently.
Probably.
Yeah. Look, I apologized for a lot of things in high school later on, but I also want to note for those that are reading the singles, for a little while at least, this is the final issue for now to have the cover date on the cover underneath the numbering. For the rest of the issues for this episode, they're all just the numbering. They don't actually put the cover date anymore. And I think that actually goes all the way through until they do the dual numbering later on, like with Marvel in general. Not here with Spider-Girl, but when they adopt that same style later on. So, that's all my notes I have for issue 12. If you're ready to jump to issue 13, I'm ready.
Yeah, let's move on if you're ready to move on.
All right. Moving on officially, we're in year 2. And this time we have some Avengers? Question mark. Spider-Girl 13, and now the Avengers. The same team as last time, released on August 12th, 1999, with the cover date of October of that same year. Again, collected with Spider-Girl Complete Collection Volume 1 and Spider-Girl Volume 3 Digest, as well as Marvel Unlimited. This is all on Marvel Unlimited. So we open with an unimpressed Mayday shopping with her mother, paying off the bit from issues 10 and 11, as they are now officially shopping together. Clearly, this is not going well. MJ and May are not really meshing at the moment when it comes to clothes, but they try to pivot to the universal uniter known as coffee. When a commotion at the mall is occurring, everybody's starting to race towards a platform where the Avengers are doing their best version of a Robin Sparkles concert telethon to raise money for charity. Sorry, I was watching How I Met Your Mother.
It's better than a Robin Sparkles concert, and also you are very aware, sir, of Britney Spears and NSYNC and Mandy Moore and all of those other people always going to malls. At the time,
true.
Mall tours were cool.
That's true. I was going to put Tiffany or I can't remember the other one from the 80s. That was what I was originally going to put in there, but
Debbie
I put
Gibson.
Debbie Gibson.
Debbie Gibson.
Yes, Debbie Gibson. That's what I was thinking of. I could see her face. Like, I just couldn't. I was like, what's her last name? So yeah, obviously it's kind of a bit.
I wasn't even around for this. I wasn't even born, and yet I can remember this.
I don't even know why I know this, other than I had a Tiffany single record. My mom had it. Like, I have a bunch of records in my mom and dad's, and I have for some reason I think I'm Alone Now from Tiffany on vinyl, the single. I was born.
I mean, I had a cassette tape that had Taylor Dane and Paula Abdul and all sorts of stuff, and it wasn't even like ladies of the 80s. Like, it was just straight up like hits from like a few years ago, because we found it in 1994.
Nice. Oh, so this leads to a brief aside about MJ and Mayday talking about the Avengers and how her dad was once a reserve member. He always kind of felt uncomfortable with the glory hounding a little bit as well. But May's gears start turning. She's always been this team player and is considering maybe contacting them to learn more. Meanwhile, back at Midtown, Moose is pestering Mayday again when Courtney shows up, and Moose pulls a teenage boy trick of running away from your crush. May reveals to Courtney's astonishment that he is the one that's in fact interested in her. She's just astonished by this particular plot point. After a brief Apple Jacks ad that is very rude, I don't know why I wrote that. There's an Apple Jacks ad that makes you stare at this dot to like make it, because they're doing the new green Apple Jacks. That's how old this is. So when we get back, we then cut back to Ms. Moore back at Midtown, this time accompanied by Brad, who is asking the students more questions about Spider-Girl. Mayday really does not take this well, thinking that it's a hit piece about her, in which she asks if anybody's then she asks, has anybody investigated these Avengers? So then just walks away in a huff.
I mean, it's valid, but at the same time, like, we'll go into it afterwards.
You got things to say. Back at the warehouse.
Just slightly.
Yeah, back at the warehouse, Mayday is doing drills with Phil, and she asks him about if he ever thought about joining the Avengers. Now, granted, other than the blue whale, knowing full well that what happened during the 90s, I don't think he was really offered a chance to join the Avengers, mainly because they were doing things like The Crossing and Onslaught. Back at the warehouse, after a Nabisco PlayStation sweepstakes ad, which really takes me back because I remember those commercials in the 90s, we go back to school where Jimmy calls Mayday his girl again, which finally Mayday, instead of internally reacting to, outwardly reacts to, unfavorably, of course. The kid, the blondie, tells May that Jimmy really honestly knows what's up after he kind of sulks away, and be easy on the poor kid. May then tries to ask Franklin for advice about the Avengers and literally gets laughed at. He then references the mission to let.
He wasn't laughing at her.
I know he was laughing at the Avengers and not her.
Yes.
So thank you for having me clarify. He was laughing at the Avengers. He then references the mission in Latveria from issue 6 of A-Next. And then May tries to ask about if there's any other super teams that she could join, which then causes Franklin to go try to change the subject, which I love that panel of like when they do the close-up of May's face, you could still tell that Mayday's kind of got that scowl on her face, like, I can't join your team either, you jerk. So
well, I mean, in fairness, it's not a team, it's a family there, so it'd be a little awkward.
That's true.
Just saying.
Awkward. Very awkward. May then tries to ask Frank. Wait. I'm sorry. May finally heads to headquarters of the HQ and gets attacked by some very Doc Ock looking arms. Shortly thereafter, May meets the rest of the team after Blue Streak and Mainframe try to contain her. She asks then if there's any openings, and after they sort of kind of feel insulted, which they shouldn't, because hello, that's how half of them joined in the first place, they take the talk and discussion inside. May is unsure what to do, as she didn't realize the commitment that this would probably entail. Stinger then kind of breaks some bad news. No openings at the moment, however, they'd be willing to consider her if she does a test of Capture the Flag Avenger style. First up, it's Mayday going up against Blue Streak, which Mayday dispatches her with ease due to her own arrogance. Speaking of arrogance, J2 thinks he can just smash his way out of this one, but Mayday then uses her agility to also get his flag. Dream then comes in and tries to get her flag, and after Mayday uses her sticking ability to grab her shield, she's able to snatch her flag. Then we get to Freebooter. He tries his hand, and again, some of his arrogance is getting the best of him, as May uses her repel power to hit her shield and get his flag, much to the amusement of American Dream. Mainframe also tries his hand unsuccessfully before Stinger and Mayday finally square off. She's no match for Stinger due to her small, very nimble size, and Mayday loses her flag. Despite thinking that she's failed, the rest of the team feels that it was a resounding success, and Mayday is named the first MC2 A-Next Reserve Avenger, much like her father. Finally, we get to the final scene of the issue where Jimmy finally has some courage to finally talk to Mayday about things. Mayday calls him out, and as she should, and points out A, she doesn't like him that way. And B, they're going to talk it out like human beings over a milkshake.
Well, soda.
Sodas, yeah. Sorry, I got milkshake confused for another issue. On sale next week, FF number 5. F5 number 1 is on sale the following week. So that is the end of the issue. Kelly, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, here's hoping we don't get any background noise. But basically, I wasn't say background noise from you. I'm hearing some weird stuff. Yeah. So replace the word adorable with cute. That was probably a verbatim argument I've had with my mother shopping. It doesn't go away. It just doesn't. But I have gotten over the fact that like she can say cute now and it's not going to affect what I buy, because that did happen. And yeah, on it, like, it's, I don't know, it's me and my mom don't have the same style, so I understand that from May. May and MJ, especially too, because my mom also does not understand that disco is dead. So
it's dead, Jim.
I get
it's
it.
Dead.
I get it. Also, another reason why I have a Starbucks latte, because they were going to get almond lattes, although I think they probably meant like almond syrup and not almond milk in 1999, but almond milk latte from Starbucks. So I hit both episodes with the coffee talk.
There you go.
And also too, again, what I was going to talk about is the thing is, see, May finds out someone has a crush on her friend, and she doesn't sneak around and play matchmaker. She explains it. It's to the point. It leaves it in Courtney's court without making Courtney feel pressured to do something she doesn't want to do. You know, and I'm just saying, like, that's far more respectful and like appreciative of your friends and your friends' like autonomy than what Courtney and Jimmy were doing to her. And I'm just throwing that out there because, like, I get it. Some people have gone and been like, oh, well, like, talking to me as like they were reading it, and they're like, well, she's kind of a bad friend to them because she just keeps ditching them. And I'm like, ditching them to go save them, but in actual conversations, she treats them with far more respect than they treat her. Far more. Yeah.
And some people are like, well, they're social outcasts because they're the nerds, right? But it still doesn't
Davida
change
does
the
it
fact.
too. No, Davida does it too. That's the thing. Yeah. They all do it. I mean, and I get it. They're teenagers. Like, I totally get it. It's all relatable stuff. It's stuff that I'm sure we all have stories similar to. And, you know, we didn't understand that stuff at the time. Like, I understand that I'm looking at it from the outside, but like, it is, I'm just saying, she handled it appropriately. So maybe Jimmy and Courtney should take that and put that in their back pocket for later. Cause that's, you know what I mean? Like, she didn't act the way Courtney acted, which was trying to pressure her into, you know, going out with Jimmy when May clearly didn't want to. And then also too, May's poker face needs some work. Cause if Miss Moore was a decent journalist, that outburst should have raised an eyebrow. That should have raised an eyebrow to everybody around her, because there is no reason she should be this upset about Spider-Girl at this time. Like,
yeah, well, especially like if the reporter's done their homework and kind of knows who May is.
Yeah, or her dad is. Like, see, that's the thing, is she could easily get out of it by saying it, but then that would also require basically admitting that Spider-Girl is related to Spider-Man, and she never really wants to do that.
Right.
And so that's the thing, is like, she almost, like, she really needs to be glad Miss Moore is kind of a terrible journalist and is talking to teenagers instead of like.
Yeah, isn't this like the second or third time she showed up at Midtown trying to get more information?
This is the first time, and then she shows up later on someone's date.
That's right.
Ruining someone's date to ask them questions about Spider-Girl. Miss Moore is a terrible journalist.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong.
So yeah, so, you know, it's, and then of course, like, I love the little things in this issue, like A-Next and Spider-Girl playing Catch the Flag, how everybody on the Avengers, like, really seems to want to hang out with her, you know, and spend some time with her, and, you know, whether it's just kind of like, let's just see her powers, let's just play around. Nobody's like really disrespectful. They're all kind of explaining exactly what they're doing, which is horrible for Play the Flag. But, you know, I get juxtaposition. They kind of have to in the comic, but it's, you know, the fact that like nobody really seems annoyed or angry. they're all very much like, okay, you broke in. Why'd you break in? Oh, wait, you did this to, you know, to join. Well, we don't really want anybody, which thankfully she realized, oh crap, I don't really want to do this. Woo. But she was able to, still kind of be a reserve Avenger, still kind of play with them. And I really like how their relationships all build anyway throughout the series with them. Yes. And this is just it's a good footing and a good foundation. Also, just the jokes with Freebooter was great.
I was going to bring that up because, like,
well, he doesn't know. Like, I mean, the thing is, he doesn't know, so he's flirting, and then and they don't really know either. They're just assuming,
right?
And so they're just like, "Hey, stop." So that's always good. So yeah. And then of course I like JJ. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I like JJ. I like the fact that, like, especially because what we find, like, what he becomes throughout as we get to know him better is so, like, it's funny that he's played off as the mysterious guy.
Yeah. When you find, obviously, in my notes on the other issue, I said, obviously, what I put? I said, obviously I know it's JJ, but I'm just kind of playing with the writing team to not tell you who it is. But, like, in my notes, I put, I really like May's interactions here, and I really like how Pat draws J2. Like, I just really enjoy how he draws him. And I also kind of like how Stinger treats May through this issue. Like, she treats her with, like, dignity and respect. I think she's the only one that doesn't underestimate her. I also like how, like you said, that when Blue Streak calls Freebooter out for jailbait, made me chuckle. I was like, yeah. You got, out of all the people, Blue Streak's the one that calls you out. So,
Look, she's learned she had to go to HR, so now she's just reminding everybody of what happens if you don't go to HR. Like, you got to be respectful. Like, she learned her lesson. She went to the seminar. She got her gold star. She's not going to do it again, right?
Hopefully. Interpersonal relationship seminar. And you know who did it? It was Mainframe. Mainframe's the one that probably hosted the seminar.
How? Like, he wouldn't understand any of it.
No, he would just have downloaded it. He would have downloaded the seminar to his mainframe and just, like, regurgitated the talking points.
Maybe.
Like, that's what I think that would be hilarious of him trying to do that. HR.
It would be funny. I feel like Jarvis had to do it. He had to step in.
Probably. I love that we're making our headcanon out to speaking it again into existence.
We need to do a fan panel on nothing but just really strange, like, headcanons that make no sense and do absolutely nothing for plot other than just amuse us.
Exactly. So Vinkman says, I just love hearing Kelly go off on Mayday's friends. It's never not entertaining.
I feel like I make it sound like they're horrible friends, and I'm not, but it's also like, well, they kind of start off that way. They get better later. I mean, I think it's all friend. Like, we all could probably look back at some things our friends did and went, man, that wasn't cool. But
yeah, I did. I do that weekly sometimes with my real life friends. Yeah, I'm going to echo something that Vinkman says, that American Dream looks really weird without her hair sticking out in the back.
Her hair was cut off.
Yeah, I know she lost all her.
Yeah.
It just looks weird. It's not my favorite design. I get it story wise. I understand it story wise, but, like, to me, that's like, that kind of gives her just completes the look for me is the longer hair. But yeah, obviously she lost all her hair in the final few issues of A Next. So I love how the rest of them sort of underestimate May a little bit.
Well, I think yes, but I also think that more than likely they probably had already just did, because the issue is, like, this is coming right off the heels of A Next 12.
Right.
They've already gone through a lot. They've dealt with a lot. So I really think a large part of it was like, well, we might need to start some sort of Avengers, but we really don't want anybody kind of in our inner circle right now,
Yeah.
which would make sense. But they're like, we kind of know her already. She's not a threat to us. We know she doesn't mean us harm. Let's just play around, because we'll see it also later too about how Stinger and May like to have their girl time, and I love it. Okay, I love that entire thing. So the thing is I think they all have a very playful mood with each other.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of what that shows off with. It's more of like they want to see her abilities, but they're not really trying to, like, no one's trying to like really toughen anybody out or wear anybody out. It's all just for games. It's a game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with that. As for the other things in my notes were the interaction with MJ and May is nice. I get that there's still that dichotomy between the two. They are still very unique individuals, and they still have, and it feels real. That part really felt real to me. And clearly, from your experience with your own mother, I'm like, okay, well, that makes. I was going to ask you if you have that similar thing.
Oh yeah, no, I'm really not kidding. Like I can just distinctly remember multiple times. In fact, actually, when I was home last and I think we went to Kohl's, and I said something like, "Oh, that's cute," and she's like, "Oh, you're using cute now," and I'm like, "It's been like 15 years since."
Yeah, they never they're like, with certain things like that, they're like elephants, and I get it. Like the first time that Gabby met Sarah, Gabby ran straight to Sarah, and it really like hurt my feelers. So I can understand like if somebody like says, "Oh, this is cute," and the kid's like, "No," because even my 5-year-old did it to my mother. My mother picked out this dress, and she's like, "Glammy, that's not a very pretty dress."
Well, because she's a person. She's developing her own taste, and that's kind of the whole situation. It's like you're not going to always have the same taste or ideas, and I think that it is good to show that they are different, because especially somebody like me with a cosplayer kind of mentality, and
Right.
and really remembering like the outfits May wears, because they were so in touch with the time, that and so was Mary Jane's. So it's kind of like it's almost kind of like I would go to on like Express or ASOS, or a more kind of like classic look, and that's what I think May would probably be wearing, versus like I go to and I know it's going to be a weird name for anybody that doesn't know the website, but Nasty Gal, and everything on there is just straight up something Mary Jane would wear. The fringe, the cowboy boots, the leather, the lace, the crazy kind of zany style, that's more MJ. So like, and I'll be honest, the shirt she throws up is ugly.
Yeah.
And then I noticed the same pattern is all pajama pants later on. So I don't know what's going on with MJ and her need for pink polka dots, but like,
it's true. It's true. So my last note is I also kind of understand Mayday's motivation for joining a team, because for Peter, his motivation was in the early days, like when he was trying to join the Fantastic Four or the Avengers, it was for money. It was to try to provide stability in his house. Mayday has the stability at home, so she thinks differently than Peter. Her priorities are different, which I really enjoy. That there's this, kind of reinforces what DeFalco always said, which was Mayday is Spider-Girl because someone lived, where Peter is Spider-Man because someone died. And by saving her dad and saving Normie's life, that's her motivation still is responsibility, but it's just that little bit of difference between the two. And, like I say, Peter has a stable job, MJ has a stable job, so it provides that stability at home. So I think it makes sense that she would be more willing to go things with a team, because Peter just kind of felt like he had to be that loner because the motivation wasn't necessarily of the purest intention. So, yeah, that's my final note. If we're ready to jump into
Yes.
to my favorite issue, I'm really excited about this one. So,
Yeah, I do want to bring up, just because I completely agree with it, what Kelly said in the comments about April being way more in sync with MJ's style, because we do actually see that nod in Amazing as well, where, you know, MJ's kind of like, okay, now we're talking, with the leopard skirt. No. So, you know, there's, it's not my style at all. So yeah, no, they do. I think that they really seem to bond over fashion a lot more in the short time that April is there. And I think, like, it's one of those things where, like, that would have been fun to explore, like the three of them shopping and having a, you know, yes, no, April has iconic looks, and I have thought about trying to get a closet cosplay of those, but it's really hard to pull something that April would wear from my own closet. So I don't know if I want to commit to a leopard print skirt, but we will see what I do for April, because we still have the month of March to get through, but I promise I'm going to do something for April. In April. Yeah.
Because April always comes before May.
April comes before May.
All right. So finally, we get to see one of my favorite characters. Sorry in advance for everybody.
It's fine.
Else.
We just talked about one of my favorite clones. So
there you go. So Spider-Girl number 14, A Man Called KAINE. Same team as last time, collected again in the Complete Collection Volume 1 and Spider-Girl Volume 3 Digest, released on September 8th, 1999, cover date of November of 1999. Our issue opens with the Spider-Man universe patented floating head of guilt, trademark, Amazing Spider-Man Classics, in the form of DarkDevil laughing at all of us. Mayday is pretty tired and cold and is wet due to the rain, which is not unlike myself this morning as I waited to get the vaccine. I got my first dose of the vaccine today, and I was standing out in the rain, and it was very cold. As she heads home, a couple of thugs are running for their lives. Mayday confronts them and takes them down with ease, but they're still fearful, thinking that Mayday somehow was working with the crazy lunatic. She thinks that this crazy lunatic, in fact, is DarkDevil, that's making them scared, but while a man in the shadows watches, but Mayday can't catch up with them. Mayday continues to wonder about DarkDevil because he usually shows up to troll her at this point, but it's been several weeks. After Mayday says a fun Superman reference aloud. Did you catch what she says when she gets awoken?
Wait. Awoken?
Yeah, when she gets woke up by her mom.
Oh.
When she's like mumbling. That's
no.
That's Mr. Mitsapliktik, the guy from Superman, the little imp from Superman. It's his name backwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's his name backwards. So
okay. No, I didn't notice that. I noticed a couple other little nods to Superman later.
Yes. So MJ awakens her daughter from school. Mayday is surprised at the fact that she was allowed to sleep in, but we learn, as you hear Waylon in the background, that we have Peter had a big meeting at work in the morning, so they didn't have their usual morning workout. Jimmy catches up with Mayday right before school and thanks her for his come to Jesus meeting and makes amends with Moose, somewhat to Mayday's shock and amusement, because Moose decides that they're going to become best friends. Because that's what dudes do. After we have a conflict, we just all become best friends. Meanwhile, Peter is faced with D.A. Yama confronting Peter about the man who viciously declared a war on crime, leaving bodies in his wake with a distinctive mark. The mark of KAINE. D.A. Yama was surprised at how Peter's name came up, and Peter tries to briefly explain what all happened years ago and that he thought that KAINE had disappeared. He gets a call from May and Phil. They get a call from May and Phil shrugs them off. shrugs her off, excuse me. Meanwhile, we learn JJ's name finally, and because Brad's trying to swoop in and take Mayday out to lunch. But Mayday deftly invites them both to lunch to prevent the awkwardness. After school, May shows up just as Peter breaks the news to Mary Jane. Mary Jane wonders if KAINE's back because of May, and Peter decides that for her own safety, she needs not to be Spider-Girl for a while to be safe. Later, Mayday decides to go out and patrol anyway, when she encounters a bunch of cops barreling towards the scene of a crime. Mayday heads towards the danger, but is stopped by DarkDevil finally, and told to stay out of it. But then she sees a man being loaded into an ambulance, broken, scarred, and dying. Her sense of responsibility overtakes her. And more on that in a moment. As we get an 8-page, inside the comic, we get an 8-page PSA inserted into our comic about weed. Yeah, it's actually in the original issues. This big public service announcement's going to show up in the even-numbered issues this episode. So don't worry, though. It's not that big of a deal. Long story short, drugs are bad, okay?
Well, I mean, now weed is legal in most places, so.
Yeah. It tells you how far we've come as a society. We had 8-page PSAs interrupting our comics in the 90s. So, we resume our regularly scheduled program of Spider-Girl already in progress. DarkDevil and KAINE are fighting. And clearly there's a history there as evidenced by the dialogue between the two. And we learn a few things. 1, KAINE cannot feel pain as all of his nerve endings have been severed. 2, that he saved DarkDevil's life. I almost called him Daredevil. DarkDevil's life only to help him want to beg for death? Question mark. KAINE then gets the upper hand when Mayday suddenly enters the fray. Mayday thinks that she's getting the upper hand on KAINE, when KAINE simply smiles and tells May that it's been a long time, that she was only a baby in the wrong arms. And as we are about to learn more, freaking DarkDevil has to tell us not to drudge up that, quote, nonsense that it should be forgotten as if they never existed. You listen here, DarkDevil. Yeah. Mayday refuses to leave. I'm a little snarky with DarkDevil right now. Mayday refuses to leave.
I mean, look, you should be snarky with being kind of,
considering what we find out later. Yeah,
I know he has a reason. I'm just saying we don't know that yet.
I know. Yeah. So, Mayday refuses to leave as KAINE suggests that she would, that if she's anything like her father, she wouldn't. Then Mayday tries to use a pipe to stop him. This offends KAINE, outrages him. KAINE informs May that that her father would be appalled by such behavior and that he had a sense of honor. He then informs May also that they in fact were closer than brothers. When she tells him that he was an only child, there's more than meets the eye to that situation. But he also then gives Mayday a message for Peter. Rumpelstiltskin has returned to claim his prize. Before he then decides to give his best regards to have her give his best regards to her mother, he leaves a parting gift, a big, bad black eye. As she's starting to tumble off the side of the ledge, she is then saved by DarkDevil, who, as she makes another Superman reference thrown in of, who's got you? DarkDevil saves the day. DarkDevil then yells at Mayday, saying, you should have stayed home and to go home. She then removes her mask, revealing that big black eye, and that is the end of the issue. So, Kelly.
Yes. Also, sorry, not the most in the zone right now.
I understand.
Something's going on upstairs. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. Having a conversation with roommate right now due to that. So apologies.
No worries.
But yeah, so we finally get to meet KAINE, and yay.
Yay.
There's obviously lots of secrets being hinted at. And I put the notes in feels like social media after WandaVision right now, where everyone's trying to tiptoe over just like saying the spoilers. And so like I could just imagine it's kind of like May hasn't watched the finale yet, and that's KAINE and DarkDevil are trying not to spoil it, but at the same time, they're really bad at it. So it just creates more confusion because she doesn't know what's going on. She has no clue. She's very lost, and all it did was create more questions and more, more situations. So yeah, so that's fun. And then as I stated about the other Superman reference, when DarkDevil saves May after she goes off the ledge, the Superman movie reference there on I've Got You. Well, who's got you? And clearly, according to DarkDevil, he knew that was a joke. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate, like, she's starting to get a little bit quippier. I know that ebbs and flows too with her. She fills herself out and kind of figures out what she really wants to do and how she wants to handle her superhero gig. But I like her testing it out because she is a smart aleck at times, and I appreciate it. She also appreciates a really good, horrible dad joke. So also got to appreciate the opportunities where bad puns come into play.
As a dad that routinely now gives out dad jokes, I can appreciate that as well. So I mean, there's times where, and I've done bad dad jokes on this very show. So there you go.
Yes. So it's a no. I like this episode. I like this issue a lot. I just kind of reading into it the way we're kind of reading into it, it gives us more questions because it is giving us the lore and the backstory of, hey, so KAINE had something to do with baby May coming back to her parents, but how? Why? What is this story? Because we don't really know all the pieces to this puzzle, and why does DarkDevil know this, but May doesn't know this?
Yes.
It creates the questions, and it does start to actually create more questions about DarkDevil themselves, because prior to this, we kind of basically thought, okay, he's got something to do with Daredevil, something to do with Matt, and Matt and Pete always had a good little friendship, so maybe that's why he's taking this keen interest in her. But now it might be there's something else there. So it's creating more questions, and gotta go into the mystery a little bit more.
Yeah, and if you want to listen to episodes that talk about the background on the network, you can always go to listen episodes of 13, 14, and 26 of Clone Saga Chronicles, where they talk about the trial of Peter Parker and what happened. And the 26 it covers Lost Years, the miniseries. And so that's where you'll learn a lot more about KAINE's backstory and what Peter's referencing when he's talking with Captain Yama. So just wanted to throw that out there. That was what I was referencing at the beginning of the episode, is why there's I mentioned that about Clone Saga Chronicles. So I really, for me, I put, man, what a ride. Because this is arguably, up to this point, the darkest story we've done so far.
Yeah.
On the show, KAINE's introduction. The Venom story was pretty dark too.
Next was pretty dark.
Well, I meant with Spider-Girl. I'm talking specifically about Spider-Girl.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. A-Next got very dark at places, but for Spider-Girl, it's very much one of the darkest stories so far. Obviously, we had the introduction in issue 12. But he's really this fearsome foe here, and he's kind of this force of nature, so to speak. And DarkDevil's right. Mayday really was in no way prepared for this fight. And it may have been a total of 4 pages, but Pat's pencils pack this really good punch, no pun intended, to the story. Pat may be my second favorite artist at drawing rain-soaked Spidey stories, besides John Romita Jr. Like those two guys can, if there's a fight in the rain in Spider-Man, I will be there for it every time. I loved Peter's reaction because and the way they kind of subtly discussed KAINE's involvement in the Clone Saga and her abduction. It's really well crafted. It's really well done. If you know the story, you're like, okay, I'm picking this up. But if you don't, there's enough there that they'll bring you along over time. And so I really like how that's crafted here with the Falco. And it's not a bunch of dialogue boxes we're saying, for more see here and see here. It's using the story using the continuity to craft the story. There's obviously the story here. We'll learn later what it is, and coincide that we're learning more about DarkDevil in these issues. And there's KAINE's ties to the origins, and it's just a really great way of foreshadowing the miniseries. And we don't obviously know if they knew that the miniseries was coming yet, but I just like how they leave the nuggets, and you don't really. You're hoping you'll learn more, but the way they do it is subtle enough that you don't have to be so immersed in the lore. It's still new reader friendly, is what I'm trying to say. I also kind of enjoy how May's like, what? In regards to Moose and Jimmy, because on the surface, it's like this abrupt face heel turn with Moose.
Well, the thing is, too, she doesn't know yet why Moose has turned a new leaf and is now wanting to date Courtney and be friends with Jimmy. And we find that out later. So what it really is, and I will say that I do like this idea, because this does at least give Moose it gives him a place to kind of go ahead and explore being more friendly, and this does bring both of her friends groups together in the end, and so then they're all friends together, and I think that really does work a lot better. They are a ragtag team of teenagers, but I like when things mellow out and they're not so much just like, I'm not hanging out with them because they're nerds, I'm not hanging out with them because they're jocks. Like, they can kind of just be people. And I appreciate them being people. And that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I like how Mayday is that glue that holds everybody together. And I like how that's being sort of formed here a little bit. Obviously, we'll learn more as we go by. Like, it seems on the surface, for people that don't really understand, that may not have read it yet, or reading it as you go, it is really abrupt. I call it a face heel turn, which is a wrestling reference, where somebody that's a bad guy becomes a good guy very suddenly. But I love it. It's it is a guy thing, sort of, so to speak, somewhat. But one thing I also really love is the Rumpelstiltskin reference. And I do actually have in my notes this a bridge.
Actually extremely creepy.
It is.
When you think about it from May's perspective, that is creepy as hell.
It makes KAINE very menacing in this issue. For people that don't know Rumpelstiltskin, I have like an abridged couple paragraphs. If you'll indulge me for a second, it's in my notes I put, a miller hopes to bring himself and his daughter out of poverty. He tells this king that his daughter can spin straw into gold. The king was in disbelief and decided to test the miller's daughter. The next day, the miller's daughter was placed in a room full of straw. The girl begins to cry because she can obviously not turn straw into gold, when suddenly a goblin-like creature appears in the room and decides to make a bargain with the woman. The creature wanted the girl's necklace in exchange for all the straw in the room to be turned into gold. The king is astonished that the girl could do this and decides to send her into an even bigger room of straw. The girl once again begins to cry, and the creature appears again to cut another deal with her. The creature now wanted the ring that she was wearing, so the girl agrees to the deal. King returns, and all the straw had been turned to gold again, and she decides to test her one more time with even more straw than the last time, to determine if she could become the new queen, because that's how you select queens, apparently. Girl begins to cry, and the creature returned to cut one last deal. The final deal was, if the creature spins this last batch of straw into gold, then the creature would get the girl's firstborn child when she was married to the king. She ultimately agrees to the creature's request, and 1 year later, the queen's baby was born, and the creature returned to claim his part of the deal. This is where the KAINE aspect comes in. The queen refuses to give up her baby, and the creature said if she had guessed his name within the next 3 days, she could keep her baby. The first 2 days, the queen couldn't guess the creature's name. The night before the last day, one of the queen's messengers came upon a creature dancing around the fire, shouting his name. The messenger returns to the castle to tell the queen, so on the final day, The queen started guessing names and eventually got to his name, which was Rumpelstiltskin. The creature was full of anger and started to kick his right foot into the ground and eventually got stuck. He tried to use his left foot to pull the other one out, and in the process, the creature was torn in half, causing him to disappear. So that is more or less an abridged version of Rumpelstiltskin, the story. He comes to claim his prize, and then it ends up ultimately backfiring. So I kind of think that allegory sort of works a little bit with KAINE in this context. Talking about the colors from last issue, in this issue, I felt like the color palette really was very much in tone with the story. The colors, the inking, the pencils are very strong, and I think it really shines in this particular issue. Mm-hmm. So that's all I've got on this one.
The art is consistent.
Yeah, it just is.
That we're reading, and the coloring is starting to even itself out and be established. With her eyes start to stay blue. They don't really change except for some reason a little later on in issue 27. But it's starting to even itself out, and I really appreciate, the consistency, and that's kind of why I don't really touch on it a lot as we're talking, and I go more into the story because it is consistent. It is great. We appreciate it. It's awesome. So yeah.
Sorry, I'm having to tell Waylon to go find his spot. Because he's being nosy. So yes, that gets to issue 15 now of Spider-Girl. Cover date December 1999, released on October 13th of 1999. Available in the aforementioned things I mentioned already: Complete Collection Volume 1, Volume 3 Digest, and Marvel Comics Unlimited. Cover introduces us to Mr. Abnormal, and we get to see Speedball in the MC2. This marks the second new warrior we've seen in this run. The other was Nova.
Yep.
More on him later on.
More on Nova.
Good old Nova.
Ruins all the fun.
We both did the swinging thing. Oh, man. Wow. We did that in stereo. For those that are not watching us on YouTube.
It's not stereo if it's a physical reaction. That's audio. It's if we say the same thing at the same time. I don't know what it is when we do.
I don't know what a metaphysical
twinning. Mirroring. I don't. Whatever.
I don't know. My bad. All right, same creative team, of course, as the previous time. This one is titled "Swinging and Slamming with Speedball."
Ooh. Long title.
Yeah, nice, long, fun '60s title.
Yeah.
Our opening splash page picks up to the next morning, where May is trying to figure out how to hide the shiner from her parents. It's luckily Saturday, so MJ comes in stating that Peter's making pancakes, a blatant betrayal of Aunt May's wheat cakes.
No, special pancakes could still be wheat cakes.
I know.
Wheat cakes are basically just buckwheat pancakes.
That's true. Since it wasn't wheat cakes, I was like, no.
It's true.
It should be wheat cakes.
Is true. It should be wheat cakes.
Yeah. So MJ is shocked to see the shiner, and so MJ tries to cover for May by telling Peter that she's sleeping in for the day. May feels the Parker level guilt and is expecting to get yelled at. But to her surprise, MJ is remarkably calm. May attempts to try to talk, but MJ can't handle the topic of discussion. Peter had already left for work, and May goes out for a stroll. When suddenly a thief takes off with the old lady's purse, but the would-be mugger, Freudian reference, Freudian slip there, was stopped by a man who looks like Robbie's grandson. We
don't know that yet. We don't know that it's Robbie's grandson yet.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
I know. I'm sorry. My bad. I did so well with JJ, and then when I get to Robbie's grandson, I'm like, oh, he looks like Robbie's grandson. Spoiler alert. It's Robbie's grandson.
Spoiler alert.
So May remarks the similarities between this and her father's incident, but it ultimately has a happy ending instead. Mm-hmm. Davida sees Mayday and remarks on the shiner. May brushes it off with a pickup game of basketball that just went wrong. Davida tries to cheer her up with 40% off shoes, and they go to town to go shop. Davida sees Moose and Courtney eating lunch, and they are greeted by the reporter from a couple issues back. After an ad for Pokemon the first movie, that's the literal title.
What? While I appreciate you talking about the ads during the time,
sorry. I get so excited when I go back and read these books, and I'm like, oh, ad. Especially the milk one with A next, and it has the silhouette with Mayday, which is ultra rare card. But then for some reason they just do Dr. Doom for the third one. You're like, that doesn't make any what? Like, it never made any sense to me. So so take you back to Pokemon the first movie. But May and Davida discuss why Moose is so infatuated with Courtney, thinking that she is in fact Spider-Girl. When Moose angrily defends the honor of his woman, thinking that she is still Spider-Girl, suddenly a fight breaks out. We are introduced to Speedball and Mr. Abnormal. Neither Davida nor Mayday can recognize who Speedball is fighting at the moment. And we see more of the fight. Courtney is saved by Moose, who then tries to get her to go change, still thinking she is Spider-Girl. Meanwhile, the real Spider-Girl uses the distraction to get away, but Davida is slightly confused. Mr. Abnormal's power set is like that of Gumby meets Mr. Fantastic. He creates a tennis racket and bops Speedball into next week, just in time for Mayday to make her splash page punch. Abs, as I'm going to call him for some reason, is not pleased that Mayday jumped into the so-called private fight. How is a fight private? How is a superhero fight private?
Look, it was between the two of them.
Yeah. And he is pissed that someone who can jump around is fighting him. It appears he's trying to get a quota going. I'm going to avoid the next advertisement because it's definitely a wrestling reference. So
just do it. What do you want to bring up?
After an ad for the best 10-inch WCW figures of all time,
God.
Electronic Interactive Tough Talking Wrestlers by Toy Biz. I had those. Mayday uses her double somersault to get behind him to attack, but is snagged. Don't worry though, because Moose is egging her on, thinking again that Mayday is Courtney. Meanwhile, Speedball joins the fray, and Mr. Abnormal is pissed it's 2-on-1, and Speedball remarks about deja vu, wondering if Mayday is related to the original gangster Spidey. Briefly, thanks to Speedball's explosion, we get the origin of Mr. Abnormal. A vat of goo meets dude, and he becomes a supervillain hell-bent on stealing rare toys, comic books, and trading cards, along with the relic of the 1990s, Beanie Babies. May can sense that he's nearby.
Beanie Babies at the time were a hot commodity.
Oh my God. Beanie Babies were it. Like, it is a very topical reference. Very topical reference.
Well, I'm pretty sure when people talk about the 90s, like, I would hope that like that photo of the divorced couple having to split their Beanie Babies out in divorce court is still making its rounds. Happened, guys.
That is a real thing. Like, to me, like, there's certain toys that are like 1990s. Furbies, Beanie Babies.
Furbies are the devil.
And I know Vinkman.
Furbies are Mephisto.
I'm shutting up because of all the Mondovision people. But Vinkman says Mr. Abnormal is more like Plastic Man. Yes, he is very much like Plastic Man. So where am I at? May can sense that he's nearby. The fight resumes. Together, Speedball and Mayday go for one last double punch, taking the TKO to the duo. May then webs up Mr. Abnormal and swings off. Moose remarks that Spider-Girl is the real deal before May shows back up. Moose then thinks that despite looking nothing like Courtney, Spider-Girl has a superpower that can magically make her a master of disguise.
Look, Moose just...
He believes. He believes. Courtney then shows up because Courtney was off going to call the cops like a responsible human being. And the one person that should have, the reporter, a.k.a. decides to just leave. Like, she just exits stage left.
Reporter ever.
We then finally cut back to the Daily Bugle where Jonah, Billy Walters, and Miss Moore, the report, are discussing the situation. Is Spider-Girl a threat or menace. Yep, that is our issue. Then ends with Mayday and Davita walking home. Davita suddenly is all about Spider-Girl now since she witnessed this fight. Mayday then starts looking and feeling more confident in herself. A floating head of optimism, not guilt, takes us out, and that is the end of the issue. Kelly, your thoughts on this particular one?
Yeah, this is her first big black eye moment, but not the last by any means.
No.
There's honestly, I think May gets punched in the face more than most superheroes. It feels like.
Yeah.
she takes one for the team a lot. And yeah, so
Takes
the
one
thing
to
is,
the face a lot. Takes a
yeah,
punch to the face.
yeah. I mean, obviously, your heart kind of breaks for when MJ sees her, and
Yes.
your heart also breaks for MJ. And you kind of see, because it's like, I can totally understand the whole, like, she goes down there to try and, like, smooth it over, and Mary Jane still doesn't want to talk about it. Mary Jane is shutting down. She's like, I'm not ready for this conversation. I knew I was supposed to, I should expect it, but I'm not. And see, the thing is, too, is that Peter doesn't want her going out and crime fighting. And so now MJ knows she's been going out and crime fighting behind their back, and she doesn't have the conversation. She just accepts it. But that's why she had to get Peter out of there.
Yeah.
And
I love how MJ takes care of May and saves that conflict, knowing full well that conflict's going to eventually come to a head.
Yeah, and so it's like, I think the thing is like, sometimes when you first read it, you don't fully understand the full situation, and it's like, no, she's literally becoming complicit in May's lies. Which I hate saying, because it's like, it's not like May is lying to everybody or doing it without a good reason or on purpose, but it's, you see here, she does tend to not be completely honest with everybody all the time until she likes being able to have the control and the handle on everything, and when she doesn't really like telling people kind of what's what. She doesn't stay very transparent. And this is kind of the first start where you're seeing this, and you're seeing like the implications of what happens when she's not being transparent. Because obviously, like, we also figure it out in a little bits and pieces as well. I think next issue with Uncle Phil and Pete, because as you know, she's training with both and hasn't really told both that she's doing this.
Yeah, I'm a remiss to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because I kind of said that, when she was talking about repelling powers, she was clearing the air with Phil. She still hasn't made it clear that she's been training with both of them.
No.
And so that is still a source of conflict between the two, definitely.
Yeah, and so this is it's this kind of ongoing situation with her, and it does unfortunately, like, if I have to explain one flaw of the character, it would be this one, because this doesn't ever really get better. She always wants to do everything herself, therefore she thinks that she can go off and not really explain everything, and if she sees something that she can use to her advantage, she takes it, which I like that about her. Don't get me wrong, but it does lead her into some trouble.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
It is like father, like daughter in that sense. Is like he has, like, Peter always had the best of intentions, but it's not. It always comes to backfire, because he's just the fact that he can't be honest for whatever reason to specific people, and then all of a sudden when things come out in the open and there is honesty there is this feeling of, the characters are like, understand. Betty Brant's a great example during the Peter Parker Unmasked era. MJ, another great example. She understands fundamentally why Peter's keeping secrets, but the rest of the supporting cast doesn't, for their own protection in many cases. And so May's trying to do the same thing.
Well, ish. I don't necessarily know it's for their own protection. I think I think the thing is it started off going, oh wait, I really need to train so I can be the best I can be. Oh, I've got 2 opportunities to do both. Great. And then thinking, okay, no one's like, this way I can do both and then still also do this. We also start looking into like the lack of sleep she gets and feels feels
feels
we all know I don't sleep, so
Yeah.
fair. So it's there's a lot of that there, and so like it's just kind of like the thing is though is like this is the first time it's like, oh, MJ's kind of becoming wise to some of the things May's been doing behind their backs, and this is the first time she hasn't turned around and then gotten mad at her. She's upset. She's seen her baby hurt, and that's not okay, and she knew to accept but she wasn't expecting it then because she wasn't aware of what was going on. And this is kind of the first time where she's like, well, I have to just let her do her own thing, so I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. But it's definitely it hurts MJ as much as it hurts May, in 2 separate reasons for this situation. Obviously, again, as we've made jokes about Miss Moore, because she literally, okay, so like we see Moose and Courtney's, I assume, first date, which is great. I love it. And it gets ruined by Miss Moore asking more high schoolers that she just talked to more questions about Spider-Girl.
Like she put the 2 and 2 together
Why?
that Spider-Girl might go to Midtown, and then, but instead of just like dropping it and then moving on to like a different like thread, it's like she's like a dog with the bone and just was like, no, this is the one thread I'm going to follow, and I'm going to beat this into the ground.
She's not even asking the proper questions. It doesn't look like she's like fully going into them or stalking them or anything. No, she's just showing up and she's just going, well, what are your thoughts on Spider-Girl? I mean, is she the journalist for the high school newspaper? Because I thought she was for the Daily Bugle.
How is Billy still employing her? Okay. Like, come on, Billy, you're better than that. I know, I know that there's a whole story that we will get into in a future episode of a future show that hasn't been happened on the network yet when we introduce Billy to the Marvel 616. But come on, man.
Yeah. And then I see Vinkman's comments about Moose being a few French fries short of a Happy Meal, but my thing is Moose never was the brightest person, but he saw this, he put 2 and 2 together on this, and what was it? It was back during, I think, issue 3. Technically, it's the first time he got the inclination that Courtney might be related with Spider-Girl, and this is how his the thing is that because he has a crush, like a celebrity style crush on Spider-Girl, and obviously I think he did like Courtney, and that was probably another reason why he picked on her a little bit. And he kind of started doing the 2 and 2. I think the thing is, wanted to see Courtney as Spider-Girl. And that's kind of what you get here, because there are times where it's very much like, dude, no, like in this issue where it's like they don't look anything alike up close. It's not going to stop him from believing.
He listens to a lot of Journey when he's driving home from high school. He doesn't stop believing.
Well, they're in New York. Like, they're not driving.
Oh, that's true. I guess he's listening to it on his Walkman in the subway.
Maybe. But, all I'm saying is just, it's more of like, I think ultimately he's using the fact that she's Spider-Girl to kind of justify his crush on Courtney. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this is what makes it okay for a while, because he is still, the big jock on campus kind of deal. Like, he doesn't want to be seen with the super nerd. But if he knows that she's cooler than the average nerd, I mean, which Courtney is anyway, but then he doesn't feel so self-conscious about his feelings.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. That's really what we're seeing.
Yeah, true. And like, you also got to realize the socioeconomic scale. He's the jock. He feels like dating the nerd is going to, dock him cool points. That's not how relationships work, Moose. But like, because I literally wrote, "Come on, dude, you're not that dumb, are you?" Okay, maybe you are. Okay,
well,
fine.
He is a 15-year-old boy.
That's true. And 15-year-old boys, there's nothing more dumb than 15-year-old boys. As a former 15-year-old boy myself, I can attest to this. So
it's the thing is like when you think about the age that they're at, and think about the fact that like it does appear that he is very self-conscious about his image.
Mhm.
It makes sense that I think that this is all just his brain trying to justify his crush on Courtney. And I think it's funny. And we play it up, and like, it works out in the end. They don't really break up. They come back together. So
yes.
they're they're kind of the mainstay power couple of Midtown.
Yes.
And I enjoy that for them.
Yeah, I mean, they really are. They are cute and they are adorable, in their own little ways.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the way that it becomes a very realistic relationship.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely real feelings for each other and hang on to that, and I think like it's a good supporting characters to have in that situation. So I enjoy them. I enjoy like this is their time. Like we got to see their first date, and it got ruined by Miss Moore way before Mr. Abnormal messed it all up. So
This is true. I don't got a whole ton of notes on this one. I said, what a shift in tone between issue to issue.
Yes.
Whereas the last issue is very dark and heavy, this one's very light and airy in tone. Speedball, a Ditko creation, is very fun. A little more adult. Last time we saw Speedball was an A-Next #1, so this was kind of cool. Abnormal's motivation, I put kind of bonkers.
I mean, okay, look, he is a collector of collectors. He was going in basically to Hasbro to steal prototypes, which is something that a lot of Star Wars collectors do and have done. I was not directly involved, but I was friends with some of the people that were around when that Boba Fett prototype got stolen from that museum. And turns out it was somebody that was in the garrison close to me. Not that I knew them very well or anything. So like there was a whole, that is a seedy dark underbelly that still exists with those certain action figures. And so that's really what they were just saying, especially in 1999 when it was really big to collect, like you said, like Furbies and Beanie Baby cards. And, people were still collecting comics as we do now. And, there's at the time, their baseball cards were still really, really big. So you always had like the Beckett manual stuff and, looking at stuff, going into the comic book shop and asking like, okay, well, you have a price guide. What is this price guide? And stuff like that. So that was a huge thing. So I get it, but it's Mr. Abnormal is more of a small time villain. He likes taking things and selling them on eBay, essentially.
Yeah. Which trust me, like, look.
That was a big thing then.
Well, it's a big thing now. I've used the scalpers, like the PS5.
Yeah, scalpers. Yeah, PS5s. So in 2021 terms, Mr. Abnormal would be stealing up PS5s.
There you go. Yeah, he'd be stealing PS5s, Xbox Ones, HasLab Sentinels that haven't even come out yet. Yeah, they're still
maybe those Dior Air Jordans, like, I mean, just whatever crazy collectibles that are out there, which, I mean, they're still crazy collectibles. So they're, it's still something that happens. It's just, it is a very niche running thing, especially because his powers don't quite make sense for that. But, whatever floats your boat, dude.
Exactly. I put, but truthfully, this really feels like a 60s or 70s type like spirit villain. So
Yeah.
I'm more than willing to kind of give the pass. I don't want to be. I don't feel like being critical about it because it fits with like the tone of the issue is
Yeah.
kind of that crazy, goofy type thing. Also, and I think Vinkman points this out in the comments as well because I did not send him my notes. I promise.
Okay. Okay.
But I put minor nitpick. The color of the black guy is almost virtually gone by the time we get to the final page, which
She does have accelerated healing-ish, though, so it could be really, really bad in the morning, and then as the day goes on, it gets slightly better. She also could have put makeup on it beforehand.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's not super, super great with makeup, but compared to other times she gets punched in the face, this isn't as bad as it was, because you do realize, too, it's like, yes, it's noticeable, but more than likely, I know too. I mean, okay, so playing basketball, when you break your nose, not that I've been lucky not to break my nose, but when you break your nose, you will get those real bad black eyes right here always. And basketball, it happens a lot because the basketball will go into your face. So that's what I think she basically was trying to state is like, it hit her and maybe it bruised her nose or something, and that's what caused the black eye. And I'm sure she knows how to cover that up with concealer. I'm sure that that's also not the first time she's gotten hit in the, like that's one reason why she probably used the lye.
Yeah.
So that's the way I feel about it, because it's like it's way worse in the morning, but then as she's in the kitchen and throughout the day, it does get better. I just assume it's makeup and I kind of move on.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way too, but I put along the same lines of what you were saying. To me, it also could be no prize. It shows how fast that she can heal, or it's just simply, just a minor error.
Minor error, and and MJ does help to. I could understand that too. She could have helped her with the makeup. I kind of got the feeling that this time it was very more like MJ pulling normal MJ, which is basically like I'm walking away from the situation for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I took this time, because then the next time, what after Seth, for her to go back to school, that's when MJ teaches her how to really do cover up. But like that, her face was destroyed.
Well, and unfortunately, in this kind of, there is a bit of a horrific undertone as someone that was in an abusive household that had to potentially cover up bruises and marks and stuff like that. Potentially, she learned those things. So I could see.
You do have to learn tips and tricks and stuff like that with makeup at times. Regardless, it's just, at least in this situation, it's a bad guy. Well, I mean, it's KAINE, but it's a bad guy.
Yeah. KAINE's more of an anti-hero at best most of the time. So that actually, with us finishing this review of 15, we are done with the Complete Collection Volume 1. That's
so far, it is coming out in April.
Yes. So we now put aside Complete Collection Volume 1, and we now pick up Complete Collection Volume 2.
Oh,
so,
yeah. I don't know what my brain's thinking.
This issue 16, the next issue we're about to cover, is the first
starts
issue.
In volume 2. All right.
Starts in volume 2. So, yeah. So I wanted to make sure. Okay, yeah. In the trade, it's still miscolored. So issue 16 features the floating heads of guilt with the Lady Hawks, Phil, Stinger, and a miscolored Nova on the Spider-Girl side, with Moose, Brad, JJ, Courtney, and Davida on the other. The caption box states, "Wow, wait till you see what happens in a story we could only call The Question." Not to be confused with the DC character. That would be the name of the title of the actual issue. It's not just on the cover, it's actually in the issue, which is always nice. Same creative team as the last issue. Our opening splash page was where we joined Mayday mid-fight with the Lady Hawks, who are training for an encounter with KAINE. This throws Mayday off her game, and that they can get the upper hand on May. One of the Hawks is concerned with May since it's quite unlike her to be hit. After discussing things, May tells them the with great power line before being brushed off as it sounds to them a fortune cookie. May then jumps off to our next splash page, thinking of her last encounter with the man called KAINE. May goes to school to discover that two boys were trying to be creepers like it's American Pie or 1981's Porky's by placing a hidden camera.
Look, this is 1999.
I know. I know the time period of which this is written, so I'm fully aware. But placing a hidden camera in the girls' locker room. May sees this happening and takes the camera and puts it into the other locker room. Meanwhile, Coach Thompson gives May grief for not practicing her basketball skills. We get an ad that interrupts our proceedings before we see Brad Miller consoling May on Thompson's tirade, but not before stumbling upon JJ, going to beat downtown on the dumbass duo of Ralphie and Turtle for Mayday putting the camera on in the other room. Slattery catches...
we don't... Our hero does not realize that yet, although I don't know how you can't put two and two together, seeing them and then hear, you pervs.
Exactly.
But, all right.
Yeah. Slattery catches them and sends the trio to the office to discuss this later. May shows up in a class where May gets the 411 on why the three were fighting, and JJ seems to feel like he was in on the joke. May wonders if she can hone her spider sense to detect douchebags. To which you just wait, Mayday. You just wait. Courtney gushes about how Moose is a changed man and how much she likes it. May and Davida think to themselves that what the real reason is. Mayday is thinking about things when she moseys to the Avengers compound and meets with Stinger. They play fight and basically do tag with highlights like May making a web construct that fools Stinger at one point. But after getting the upper hand, Mayday and Stinger get greeted by the resident stick-up-his-ass, Nova. After being scolded like school children by Nova, the two literally laugh it off. And afterward, May gets the news from Moose, Courtney, and Brad as to why JJ threw down with the dumbasses, which was May putting the camera in the other locker room. Despite the sweet revenge that this affords, JJ gets scolded by Slattery and given a month of detention. But we don't know what the punishment for the other two in this was. But afterwards, Mayday then goes up to JJ and asks just why he did it. And JJ simply responds that it was the right thing to do. This is where Mayday offers a milkshake on behalf of all the girls in the school. And that is the end of the issue. Kelly? What do you think of 16? Boy.
I feel like everyone should know that I have some thoughts on Turtle and Ralphie, right?
Yes.
Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah,
Who cares about
Turtle
their
and Ralphie.
stupid names? They should be thrown out of the school. So I wrote I'm really thankful that I never had to experience this growing up. Not that I don't have stories of hijinks and mayhem and chaos of high school years and boys doing stupid things and girls doing stupid things, but no one went this far in dealing with the locker room. Also, I have a question about how long did the batteries last in the old camcorders in 1999?
Not very long, guys.
Yeah, so I don't know what exactly they were thinking or what they were gonna get. And too, in today, just to make you freak out and get scared, in today's, what they could do today is get one of the cameras and actually hide it because it's tiny enough, and it would also come with a little speaker and they could talk through it.
As
it's
someone
creepy.
Someone has freaked out my fiance when she walks up the door and I'm I'm not at the house, be like, hey, what's up, babe? What the hell? It is very discomforting whenever you're using a Ring doorbell and people are talking to you. Disembodied voice. It's not great.
It's not great. It's not great. So they could make that way worse in today's time. I'm glad it's just the camcorder. However, also though, in today's terms, like back in 1999, there might have been laws against this, but probably not as much as there are now, especially when it comes to basically, let's just go ahead and say what it is: child pornography and revenge porn, which both of them under. And so, Ralphie and Turtle could wind up should be going on the sex offender registry and probably but and here's my thing is like, May switches it and it's all fun and games because she's switching it back on them, which is a total high school thing to do. I kind of just wish she had destroyed it because essentially it doesn't matter at all. Turtle and Ralphie are out of trouble regardless of what gender they recorded. Like, it's still revenge porn and probably child pornography. So that's fun for them. So obviously, JJ is 100% in his right to punch the ever-loving crap out of them and call them what they are, which is perverts. And
and like as topical as it was, and sadly, it's still, like you say, it's still very topical thing now, today. Yeah. And so, like, obviously, it's something that's gone on in various ways since the 80s, or even before that, truthfully. But it was, like, popularized in the 80s.
1999. Yeah, because, I mean, it comes from things like, is it Porky's?
Yeah, Porky's was the one with the hole in the shower, and then you had American Pie with the webcam.
Yeah, American Pie.
Revenge of the Nerds. Yeah, so, like, it is a concept that continues to transcend, but now our sensibilities are starting to realize that
it's not when it's really stuff without consent. It's really not okay because it is very, very like in a serious moment, like it is very violating. And the fact that you don't know, like it's there's nothing funny or pranky about doing this. Period. It wasn't then either. It was just the way things were handled because it was always played off as a joke of, oh, look at that perv. Isn't that funny? And it's like, that's actually concerning. And so that's why I really enjoy JJ here. Because even at the time, JJ's just like, he hears it and it's just punch. It's kind of like, punch Nazis. Like, who cares? Punch pervs. Like, both apply. Like, there is no questioning them. There is no reasoning with them. You just regardless if that's right or not, because clearly he still gets in trouble. But he doesn't get suspended, which I'm pretty sure at least Ralphie and Turtle got suspended.
Yeah.
At least, if not expelled for that.
For like 2 like, I mean, we don't, obviously headcanon will probably tell us what should have happened, but we don't see it on page. But yeah, no, those two, and they kind of show up to be like the practical jokesters. But again, unfortunately, as time's gone on, like you say, we've seen so many instances where this has escalated, and it's now become such a problem.
Well, now society. I mean, now there are laws because of the fact that so many people were traumatized and did feel violated, and if there wasn't a law before then, there was a law made in the last 22 years since. Yeah. So it's, that's a large part of what I'm just trying to say is that as the internet has changed and as the revenge porn craze has changed, this stuff has changed. So, there is that. I also as we're talking about the thing, Starbucks reference with Stinger.
Yes,
probably the first time I ever saw Starbucks in media, actually. So yeah, because I don't think we didn't have a Starbucks we didn't have a Starbucks here until not here in Atlanta. There might have been one in 1999, but where I grew up, there wasn't one until 2004.
Yeah, so, like we have one now in our grocery store because it's part of the Safeway chain. Because it eventually
street corner. I don't. Yeah, it's like Waffle House.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but in my little tank town of Texas, we have them in Amarillo. There's like 5 or 6 in Amarillo, but like here, it was a big deal when the grocery store was like, yeah, we're gonna knock out the floral department and put in a Starbucks. Okay, cool. So you can drink a cup of coffee while you go get your groceries. So yeah, that like my thoughts are again kind of brief here. Really like the interplay of Stinger and Mayday. They're really starting to become friends, and there's this respect that was kind of just starts to really form here, which I really enjoy this relationship. It reminds me of like Peter and Johnny later on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and too, it's like I enjoy them having fun. I enjoy the fact that Stinger is just like, hey, if we're gonna play, can we also like play fight? Can we just, because I want to have fun as we're talking, and I really enjoy that. Nova ruined it. How dare he? Okay, look, I get where he's coming from. I was posted scenes of this on my Instagram, and someone immediately came in and was like, but Nova's right though. And I get it. Yes, he's right. There was no need for all the property damage. Even though that really does seem to be A-Next specialty is just destroy everything.
A-Next and J2, yes.
Yeah, but it's just basically like they were having fun, and I enjoyed the fact that they were having fun. And Nova completely ruined it. And the only thing that was really damaged was like a shovel and 2 flower pots, which I think is very minimal considering things.
Consider like that is so minor.
And then two, Nova shows up because he's going mind control. So like he's not even going like, they're just having a misunderstanding. Whatever. I'm gonna move on and focus on like real crime. No. He just assumes mind control.
Well,
I get it. Talia's been running around, but my thing is like, seriously, dude. And then also someone mentioned to me as we were joking, because somebody was like, "That's definitely not Richard Rider," and then someone was like, "Yeah, it's definitely not Dick Rider," and giggles. So
now you made me giggle. Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Look, it's very interesting that there's no villain in this issue, unless you're counting Nova as the villain, which of course, like you've said and you've commented, it's fair to think that. However, it's really not easy nor seen very often in superhero comics, particularly, that there is no villain. So I got to give DeFalco a lot of kudos for making a really engaging slice of life story without having to have that super villain. And so the high school subplot is again very much of its time, and I just love one of the other things about the Stinger fight is that how resourceful Mayday is with the construct. Yes, we saw that a little bit with like Peter in issue 25 of Amazing and stuff like that, and he's used that before. But unless Peter's taught her that, that's just Mayday thinking that up on the fly, and I really enjoy that. Last note is notable house ads. There is an ad for those 2 1990s animated classics, Spider-Man Unlimited and the Avengers United We Stand. So that, except for the top 3 Avengers, because there are movies happening, y'all, and we just decided to adapt West Coast Avengers for reasons. That's what I call United We Stand. Really, both terrible cartoons. But I just had to. They look. There's elements of Unlimited I like. I'm not gonna lie, but when I watch Unlimited, I get flashbacks to Scarlet Spider Unlimited #1, which is never a good thing for me because I'm still traumatized by reading that issue. So, yeah, but I just had to mention that notable house ad of I was like, oh, when I got to that, I was like, oh no, like I had such hope because we were coming off the '90s show. I thought, okay, brand new Spider-Man series, and I love the animation because it's kind of got a certain like comic booky style to it, but the storytelling is just Not very good. And unfortunately, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, United We Stand stood no chance, unfortunately. So that brings me to the big double-sized.
Yes. Oh, I also do want to say though too, just because it was in my notes, for Chris Oraclefish, when they watch this, if can tune in because they are currently streaming themselves. Mm-hmm. He brought it up with he got his drawing from our friend Mr. Ron Friends, and
Mr. Ron Friends,
and he got the buzz, and there is a story there, and the story is way back when people were doing like, hey, pick a Marvel character, and click like, and I will pick a Marvel character that you remind me of. Well, I did do this, and I will pick somebody. I'll do somebody from MC2. I'll do something different. And so when he did that, I was like, "You're JJ. You're Buzz." And obviously, he had no clue what that was at the time, and he actually got very, very mad at me. But here is the issue
that makes you think of him.
Yeah, and I'm like, there's nothing bad here. Like, why are you so mad? I know why he's mad, because he got mad because it was like, it's a fly, and I'm like, give him a chance. But this is that, because it's before we know he's Buzz and stuff like that. But like, JJ has a really good heart. He's a really good character. I really appreciate him. So Chris, here you go. Continue reading it. I know you identify with Hack and Mutter, but like, I didn't give anybody Hack and Mutter.
Nobody can be Hack and Mutter unless they're like a crouchy old man that likes dragons.
There's a lot of that in nerd culture, especially Dragon Con, because dragon.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I don't know enough about Dragon Con. I can't comment. But yes, we get to our final issue of the night, the double-sized spectacular. Once a Web-Slinger. This was a minor note before we get started. This was originally intended to be the finale of Spider-Girl, but because of the fans, this was not the finale. That's why it's randomly a double-sized spectacular, because it was going to wrap up a lot of plot points. So issue 17 tells us that double-sized spectacular featuring Peter Parker as Spider-Man. The text, of course, says, once a Web-Slinger and we then open up the book, and it said our snowy issue opens with an informant trying to meet a man in the shadows, telling him that Kingpin of Wilson Fisk is going to face appeal for his crimes. The man in the shadows is KAINE, the man who hunts. Our next page gives us our credits and our title for the issue, Turning Point. Written by Tom DeFalco and everybody on the team that does this particular issue. I forgot to write down the release date of this issue, but we open with surrounded by floating heads of guilt, namely KAINE and DarkDevil. MAYDAY leaps through the night out on patrol when she heads home to find a man in the shadows. She thinks it's KAINE or DarkDevil, but it's in fact worse, Peter Parker. He's got his disapproving dad stare that happens when you become a parent. Peter is pissed since he didn't give the okay for her to be back out as Spider-Girl and demands the web shooters. He says, quote, they're mine and I want them back. I don't know why Jonah Jameson came out, but that just works.
It's fine.
He says, waking up half the neighborhood in the process. May gives them to him before going to bed. The next morning, MJ and May have a heart-to-heart. Peter only wants what's best for her and knows the type of heartache that can ensue with the life with superpowers. May wonders aloud if she will ever be good enough to be Spider-Girl. And meanwhile, we then check out the on the resident big man of crime. Sorry, wrong show. It's the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, getting his nails done, readying for his time in court, trying to look his best. DarkDevil appears in his cell and warns him that KAINE is coming and to watch his back. When the lackey that's doing his nails remarks that he shouldn't cross the devil dude, he simply says, do. I've already done. We are joined then by May Parker doing what all 15-year-old kids do, which is read the newspaper. Sorry.
Well, okay, look, this is before smartphones, so I kind of feel like I kind of feel like the Daily Bugle might be more prevalent in a high school in 1999 than
Fair. So JJ comes by and says hi. Brad Miller then asks May out. This, of course, really excites May because she's had this big crush on Brad
not a real
Miller.
date.
Yeah, not a real date though. So, but this excites May, who does even her best yes.gif impression. So we go to Midtown South Police Station, where our favorite duo of Phil Urich and Peter Parker work. They're talking about the crime we witnessed at the beginning of the issue when suddenly Peter's spider sense goes off. Before he can react, Phil is taken hostage by KAINE. And Peter asks what KAINE's demands are, and KAINE tells him that originally he came to witness Spider-Girl firsthand, seeing as how she never made it. She would have never made it to her first birthday had he not returned her. He was thinking of being like Rumpelstiltskin, but DarkDevil reminded him of another debt he owed. He informs Peter that he's willing to trade a dead Kingpin for a live Spider-Girl. After a brief celebration for May snagging her man, we then go over to the Daily Bugle, where Billy Walters and Kingpin are going to J. Jonah Jameson are going to Kingpin's arraignment. Back at Forest Hills, MJ is told by Peter what happened with KAINE. As Peter's in thought when he decides that there is only one thing left to do. He grabs the web shooters, marches upstairs. MJ then suddenly is in a panic, arguing with Peter over the merits of going out again, especially since KAINE is the reason they were able to be a family. Peter used that as justification for his inaction in the past while he suits up. But MJ is worried he's too out of practice, and he still only has one good leg. Still, we are treated to a full-page splash of Peter Parker, MC2 Peter Parker, dressed once again as Spider-Man. We briefly go to the hideout with Phil, who fills Mayday in on what's going on when we cut back to the courthouse. What seems like a boring winter's day when a familiar man in the shadows grins at what he sees. After our usual house ad for subscriptions, we get a page with the two side by side, one focused on Kingpin and his approach to the courthouse, the other Mayday rushing home. MJ just tells her that Peter's gone and that May determinedly asks where. Following, Peter is then seen swinging around, remarking that he's not out of practice or that his reflex aren't that bad. But then Karma kicks him in the leg, literally, when he slips on some slick ice. He's able to quickly recover, but not before thinking that maybe he is, in fact, out of practice. After recovering, he sees the SWAT team tied up. Then Peter realizes he's in danger when we see the anti-sniper or anti-superhero squad who may or may not be working for the NYPD. Peter dodges their attack and has one of the best quips of the issue. I may be a little past my prime, but I'm still a collector's item. Sorry, it still makes me laugh every time. After a pronounced snap that God, I wrote this. We have not seen since Gwen. It looks like Peter's in trouble.
Oh.
Sorry. I was a salty booter when I wrote this. The next page features those tough-talking wrestlers again, followed by a fantastic splash page of May saving her dad. The two fight alongside each other when we cut back to Foggy defending Kingpin in court. But outside, Mayday and Peter are arguing over her life. She then asserts her authority when DarkDevil shows up. He requests their help and formulates a plan. And Mayday says, F you, I've got KAINE. I'm taking care of this now. After Kingpin looks smugly on, thinking that he's won, KAINE suddenly has other plans, which are then thwarted by Mayday. May fires a web line that I have no idea where he came from, where that came from. Did he
Magic?
Yeah, I have no idea where that web line came from.
Magic.
KAINE fights May, and he tells him that he was holding back before. But meanwhile, DarkDevil and Peter having it out concerning Peter's disgust over DarkDevil's taking over for Daredevil. Suddenly, the Goon Squad shows back up, and the two have a spirited fight alongside each other. DarkDevil tells Peter that without Matt and Peter, he wouldn't be here. Cut to KAINE and May, where we find out why KAINE wants to kill Kingpin. KAINE was saved by Daredevil, but at the cost of Daredevil's own life. KAINE then jumps to the steps, ready to confront Kingpin. He accuses Fisk of killing Matt Murdock back in the day, but Fisk doesn't deny it. However, Foggy, his former partner, is horrified. May springs in and defends Fisk, the two tango, with May telling him how much she doubted herself. But now it's a Spider-Girl world for backhanding him into the next day. May tells KAINE to stay down for everyone else's sake. On the roof, Peter Parker's a proud papa, yelling, "Yes!" .gif. While DarkDevil remarks how impressive his daughter is, saying that Peter must be very proud. Peter, of course, is taken aback, thinking it might be actually Matt under the hood. The DarkDevil informs him that Matt is indeed dead, and he is just a friend. Cut to a very happy Mayday Parker, who is told that the Daily Bugle is commending our girl. JJJ must have had a change in heart, but all this comes at a terrible price. Her date with Brad was ditched, and he is pretty teed off. So in typical Parker luck, her moment of triumph is ruined by her life as Spider-Girl. And finally, we get to our final scene back in prison, where the lackey/barber is shaving Fisk, when someone is placed in a cell next to his. A man called KAINE. So that is the end of the issue. The double-sided spectacular Once a Web-Slinger. Kelly, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is the first issue that we get where May says that, you know, she can kind of figure out what the different tingles in the spider sense mean. So she can kind of determine who, you know, exactly who is setting it off, maybe a little bit on why they're setting it off. And so that's, you know, it's the first time we kind of see that hers works a little bit differently than Peter's. And I enjoy that, especially because we learn it through dun dun dun. She's been caught. And you know, we learn a little bit more about Baby May's homecoming and how it involved KAINE. Foggy defending Fisk was crazy, but you know, he eventually drops him. So there we go. Also, I don't know why, but Peter getting way too into his web slinging and then busting it brings me great joy.
That's just when I said it was karma, it's literally karma coming back to bite.
Yeah, and well, because he got cocky. I mean, he can be a little hypocritical at times. I mean, that's the beauty of Peter. It's one of the things I think I've discussed on Twitter and on Reddit before, when people, newer fans, come to me and they're like, "But I don't understand this characterization of Peter. He wouldn't act this way. He'd be the cool dad." And it's like, no, he wouldn't, because no, like, that's not Pete. Like, he's not cool. Like, and he's going to be overprotective, and he is going to care, and he is going to maybe be a little hyper vigilant about some things. And he is, and in that kind of situation, he is going to be hypocritical to what he did, but he's doing it for a reason, because that's parenting. Like, parenting's not perfect. And in general,
no, you're right.
I have a jokey note saying "What's the Stitch horny" is completely ruined because of bad Kim Possible fan fiction. So that's good.
Oh no. Oh no.
Just saying, that kid, oh god. But anyway, so there's that. Also, tell DarkDevil and Peter are basically Statler and Wardorf up on the ledge cheering May on. That's cute. They're the old men Muppets, if anyone doesn't know their names. It makes me like seeing them and seeing how they interact makes me wish we had more moments with DarkDevil and Peter. I wish we could have had that moment where they had to figure out his backstory and make that known to the rest of the Parker family, because I think that would have been a really good issue.
I just want one issue. That's like the one issue that I if they can come out of retirement and just do that one issue for me, I will die a happy man. I just want that conversation so bad, because as a Ben Reilly fan, and you'll understand when we get there, like, I just wish we would have had it. So
yeah. So I mean, I'm sad. Like, when you see these good moments and you see like this works so well, and this is, you know, interesting and fun to read and to see, it's going back on it. It kind of makes you sad for what we didn't get But I really enjoy it. I like how May is handling a lot of it. Yes, she did forget about Brad. Yes, that sucks. That's horrible. But she stood her ground. She stood up for herself. She was like, "Hey, I've really had it. Like, look, I'm here. I'm going to fight. This is my time, and I'm going to do it." And she did what she needed to do, and got the better of KAINE. Whether or not KAINE might have given that to her, we'll never know. But it really shows you who May is at the end of the day. She's going to be, this is her time to shine. This is her book. This is who she is, and she knows that. Versus Peter always kind of wavered about it. At the end of the day, like when push comes to shove, May knows she's Spider Girl, and she's going to be Spider Girl. So I enjoyed that little aspect of it, and I'm glad it was not the end, because this does not feel like an ending. It feels like a chapter ending, but it's not. It doesn't feel like it's the end of the series by far. So I'm glad that it wasn't the end. So that's really my thoughts on that. I don't really have a whole lot to say other than now we're getting into it, because we're gonna meet Raptor next issue, and we're gonna get some more normie action, and MJ has a lamp, which is not a spoiler because that happens a lot. And
Yes.
so there's we're starting to get into now that everything's kind of in a formulaic situation, and we're starting to hit the ground running on stuff. Like, we're starting to get really, really into some really good stories. Not there weren't before, obviously, but it starts to hit a good pace, and I'm excited to go through that pacing.
Yes. So if you're following along in the digests, we start volume 4. If you're following along in the complete collections, we are in volume 2. I did pull it up. December 8th, 1999, literally almost to the day, 3 weeks before my 12th birthday was when this was released. And the cover date is actually February of 2000. So we're now in the cover dates of the year 2000. So I also wanted to double check.
We're partying like it's 1999. We are in the new millennium.
Yes, we are about to enter the new millennium, and it is Y2K was a thing when.
Yeah.
So yes, we are now ending. That calendar year, and we're turning to the year 2000. Definitely, but this was in fact the first time it was a save for Spider-Girl, was this particular issue. So I think that they knew this one a little bit further in advance. But this is also the last time we get any other ongoing series in the letters pages, because Fantastic Five number 5 is solicited, and that is the final issue of Fantastic Five. Wild Thing was solicited in the previous issue. So yeah, we're now, if you're, like I said, you're following along, it's a complete collection volume 2. I'll go through my notes really quickly.
Yeah.
So as I pulled it back up, the artwork is good. It's really good, but you can tell that the doubled page count kind of, there is some elements of a little bit rushed. It's not nearly, it's a very subtle thing, but you can kind of tell that there is a little bit of it. The fact that this wasn't the last issue of Our Girl is awesome. Like I say, like you said earlier, Peter's karma with that scene of him web slinging is just hilarious. Of course, Peter and DarkDevil together as a win, and I just love that in this issue there's a bit of May's overcoming her own self-confidence issues for now, because KAINE was this boogeyman, and I think that there's a respect that is formed beginning in this issue with KAINE. And like I say, I'm going to probably go much more into detail about KAINE's backstory when we get to the DarkDevil miniseries, because that's pretty relevant there. My one con of this whole issue is I feel like we missed an issue of backstory. Why is Foggy representing Wilson Fisk? Like,
yeah, that was my thing. I was like, it makes no sense, because you would have thought that like Foggy would know this, but maybe he never really knew that Matt was Daredevil in this world. Like, I don't know. We never really get into that backstory, and that is something I would like to know, because I would like to see, like, because clearly Foggy is a part of this. You know, he is Normie's stepfather. They even mention Liz's death there and how Wilson Fisk sent flowers, and I get it that it's Wilson Fisk, but like, it doesn't all make sense. So you know, it's just we are missing a little piece. Not that it makes a big deal in May's story. It's just a lore situation that we would like to see and like to know.
My other con on this too is I don't understand this Marvel con. There's a badge that's on these issues, and I'm putting them up to the screen for those that are not they're just doing the listing. It says 60 years of superheroes, Marvel Comics, and I'm like, this was 99. What? Like, what? I could understand in 60 or in 2001, but like, what? 60 years of Marvel or superheroes. That kind of boggles my mind. I don't understand what they were using. I get that there was a lot of push because it's the year 2000, it's fresh and it's new, and they're throwing everything. If you're reading the Spider-Man titles at this time, it's literally you're talking with Chapter 1 and Banky Burn reboot, but it's really weird, and I don't understand. So, minor quibble, nothing to do with what's in the issue, like the Foggy thing. Again, I just would have thought that Matt would have maybe filled him in before he died. But again, I'm not like somebody that religiously read Daredevil. I've read issues here and there, so I'm not as well versed in that lore as I am with Spider-Man particularly. So I was going to go through the comments, and there's a few questions that are thrown out there, Kelly.
Hold on. You are not following the script.
I forgot I'm not following your script.
You are not. Because before we do that, we did want to check on letters, emails, reviews, and voicemails, but I didn't know if we got any. So did we?
We did not. No.
Okay.
There was no.
The next part, because you got to open up yours.
Yes, I am so excited. So, what's in the box, Kelly?
What is in the box? Yeah, no. So I've got my scissors here to open it. I have not at all touched mine. I have not opened it. I did fix the addresses on there, Vinkman, because someone did not last time.
So sorry, Vinkman. My bad. So let me kind of explain for those that don't understand, that don't know what's going on. As you're cutting open the box. So setting this up. So last week we got sent to us, me and Kelly, a couple of gift boxes from our good friend Vinkman. And while she's opening up hers, I'll kind of show off again. Yeah,
I'm really trying to like not do that, but like these are taped up.
Yeah, they're taped up pretty good. So I'll show you guys briefly what I got. I got the Spider-Man Cosmic Adventures. This is a replacement to my original copy from the 90s that I got because my copy got chewed up by dogs, which is always unfortunate. Speaking of Clone Saga, there's a big theme in this one. I have now the Clone Genesis trade, which I have the original Clone Saga trade, which reprinted a lot of this in here. But this was the one that came out in the 1990s during the Clone Saga and was actually edited by Glenn Greenberg and Tom Brevoort. So they were in charge of this particular trade. And so it's from 94, I think, was when this was released. I then was also sent Backlash Spider-Man, which is a 2-issue miniseries that was in association with Image and Marvel. And with featuring Ben Reilly as Spider-Man and Backlash, the character, and also Venom makes an appearance because it's Image, it's the 90s, and yeah. And then finally, 2 things. I got Carnage, or no, excuse me. I got this Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk Cowboys Cheerleaders comic book that he sent me, which is really nice. These little pocket comics that are from Drake's Baking Goods. So there's a 4-issue miniseries. And Carnage, which I think I put on my shelf. I don't see where I put him. Yeah, he's on the shelf. So I won't show Carnage off, but he got me the Marvel Legends Carnage from last year. Oh, no, wait, there he is. So not last year, year before last. So this was with the Venom, the second Venom wave they did. and very much the classic Bagley Carnage. So thank you, Venkman, to that. And then finally, the Spider-Man Lost Years trade, which I thought all of the stuff in here was actually reprinted in the Clone Saga trades, but they do these bios of the creative team, and that wasn't in there. So that's really cool. So it's a really cool collector's item for me as a Clone Saga fan, and a big KAINE story, as you can see on the cover as I'm showing this on the screen. So kind of related to tonight. So Kelly, what's in your box?
Yes. All right. So,
did you send that to me, Vinkman?
we read it.
Yeah, we read it 2 weeks ago, 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, or I mean, might not have been in January. Maybe it was one in February. But we did read your email.
Yes.
On
the I think it was last episode because we recorded so early in the day.
Yeah, it was either yes, it was last episode. So it is. We did read your email, Vinkman. But you asked us to wait on opening these up.
Mm-hmm.
I held my end of the bargain. I told Zach to talk to you when he wanted to open it up.
Yeah, I opened mine up on.
Did you tell him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I me and Vinkman were in contact with each other. I said, "Hey, is it okay if I open mine up on Wednesday?" Because we didn't have an issue that came out this week, and we were just kind of, I was trying to figure out ways to fill in time. So, all right.
So here's the first thing. I'm gonna cut that. I'm not gonna just rip things open like a heathen, like I normally do.
So Kelly is unwrapping the first gift.
Dana! Yay! Her head is somewhere, but thank you, because I've used my other Jaina for an unmasked Mayday, but the head was not. So the heads fit better on the teen bodies on the Marvel Legends, the Star Wars heads, but it's still not quite right. So I needed to have added a little bit of glue, and I hadn't yet, and so she rolled over, and that's one of the things I was trying to do this weekend was go over to the craft area and literally reorganize so that way I could get a hold of them. So thank you. Okay. I'm not gonna open her up and use her again. So she's gonna be my Jaina. So thank you for another Jaina.
That's
Jaina's
awesome.
my favorite EU.
Okay, Kelly. He said there was one right before we did the next episode, so we'll have to go check. But
I will check after I finish this. Give me a second.
Okay.
We're gonna open these up. So many things. All right, so we have these special A-Next and J2 covers that I did not have. So thank you, Vinkman. He is officially the original variants on all of them. So I really do appreciate that so much. It's really, really cool. Ooh. I got a Mary Jane Marvel Saga with her engagement ring.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that because I actually have the wedding issue of Marvel Saga. So that's
nice. I think that looks like Ramita Senior artwork too. That looks like a Ramita Senior face.
Ramita, it's right there. And then there's black suit Spidey and a top hat and some flowers.
That's cool. That's really awesome.
That's awesome.
Really awesome. Because for those that don't know, she doesn't just cosplay Mayday. She does also cosplay MJ too. So
I do, and one of the outfits that I'm kind of obsessed with about MJ is her wedding dress, because what people don't know is that it actually was designed by a designer, actually an African American designer, who was one of the first African American designers to hit international fame in the 80s, mostly known to his activewear, Willie Smith, but he did also do custom wedding dresses, and it was the last wedding dress that he designed himself before his death.
Yes.
So it's a very important dress, and I don't quite know if Marvel understands the importance of the dress, and I'm wondering if it's gone missing over the years because someone at Marvel did not understand the importance of the dress in terms of the fashion history. And I just want to find sure it's okay. So that's like my
there's
Marvel mystery I need to figure out. But
there is one person that might know that answer, and that may be Jim Shooter. I wonder if we reach out to Jim Shooter, he might know.
I just want to know that it's not like missing or destroyed. I've made a joke on the crawl space. I think it was the crawl space where we were talking about Joey Kyo and his disdain for the marriage, and I was like, maybe that was the pitch meeting. He just took the dress and just burned it. That was the whole pitch.
He burns it in effigy.
Burns it.
Okay. All right. So what else did Vinkman get you?
So, like I said, so I've got this lovely I can't remember the name for them now, but the
trade paperback.
Trade paperbacks with the first so it's all of the wedding stuff collected for the first time. So it's got the comic strip wedding and the Shea Stadium wedding. Maybe it'll have something to do with dress, but I think that's lost to time.
I'm telling you, like, Vinkman must have like a dealer for like the 80s and 90s trade paperbacks, because like that one's a very hard one to find.
It's a hard one. And then speaking of another hard one, the alien costume.
Oh, Ron Friend's drawn alien costume.
Yes. So it's the entire saga of the alien costume. So that is really, really neat. And apparently when this was first published, it was originally $9.95, where this is clearly a $1 book.
Yeah, it's 4 times that amount today. He says, flip to the back of the wedding trade. There's a lot of cool bonus material in there. So
yeah, I mean, it's got like all the comic strip stuff. Oh yeah. So this is a reprint of the news article.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
These are all the photos. Yeah, because they did a lot of promotional photos. It's kind of cringy, but in the way that the 80s are just cringy.
That's true.
Yeah, so this is the wedding of the century. This is actually in the wedding Marvel saga that I have about the design of the dress and talking to Willie Smith himself.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I'm just like, look, one point in time, y'all should understand the importance, because like now it's kind of normal to like try and find a designer to design a wedding dress for the wedding that you don't actually have in the comics.
Yeah.
But back then that was really new and interesting and different. So that was very, it was a very big deal, very important. So that wedding dress being actually constructed and designed by Willie Smith, I feel like deserved. Back then, that was really.
Sorry, I was trying to like our video. Sorry, my bad.
You're fine. And then I have The Amazing Spider-Man by Stan Lee, a fireside book. I have never seen this.
I remember that image. I actually used to have that up on SpideyDude.com. I actually may still have that cover image without the trade dress somewhere. I still have a lot of my old Spidey Dude scans and stuff like that I had from back in the day. So I'll have to find that.
This is super cool. Thank you, Vinkman. Awesome. I don't really have a whole lot of places on my like bookshelf. So now I'm gonna have to like also redo that. I do have a bookshelf I haven't built, so maybe that's also a situation I need to go ahead and start doing.
Yeah, I told Sarah that one of my next purchases is going to be, I'm going to buy a bookshelf for this side that nobody sees in the room right now. Because like right now I've got like a lot of my Clone Saga and stuff, and like my stuff that is going to be for the Forgotten Era podcast post Clone Saga pre-reboot books are all in my footlocker. But I've got like my long boxes kind of stacked up awkwardly. So like my Spider-Girl long box is on the very top. It's the newest one because, only the best for Mayday. And so I can easily go through and rummage that, but if I want to go rummage through any of the other stuff, it's just really hard. So I'm gonna have to get like another bookshelf. And this shelf that I have for my like legends and stuff that I've got most of my trades on, it's really it's a great like display shelf for like just like knickknacks from your grandmother's house. It's a really bad shelf for putting your like collectibles on. So like comic collectibles and stuff. So eventually I'm going to get me another bookshelf over here to where if I want to, I can kind of have that to where you can see that, not have stuff like, I don't know, that ladder in the way. So
I got you. I have once I put this bookshelf up, it'll be my 4th IKEA bookshelf. I have a lot of comics and a lot of books. It's yeah. So, but thank you for these because I really do appreciate them. I'm definitely like very sweet and very like I'm very thankful. So thank you so much, Minkman. Normally Patreon members get gifts from us, not we get.
We are also speaking of that, Chris and Vinkman, your shirts. We're going to be working on them either this weekend or in a couple of weeks and getting them out to you as soon as possible. I've got Chris's shirt. We haven't ordered Vinkman's shirt yet, but we're getting the design and everything like that finalized. Me and Sarah have been going back and forth on it, but we've just been crazy busy with wedding stuff. So that is going out to you guys very soon. So very much looking forward to hearing you guys the feedback from that. Also, the other thing that Vinkman got me that's very hard to find is the Revelations Clone Saga trade that when he sent this to me the first time, I was so just very moved, and I'm very moved by what he did with this new stuff too. So Vinkman, you're a gentleman, a scholar. Thank you so much for your generosity, and just your support. You're one of our best supporters.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I really do appreciate it. So as we are wrapping up, because we are hitting almost 2 hours and 40 minutes, we do want to take a few questions, and then we'll probably just.
Yeah, I'm going to go back through and see what the ones that were actually asked that we didn't already answer. Okay. And then I will, I'll give people time because it's a 30-second delay, especially on YouTube, to give us more questions, and then we'll answer them as quickly as possible. So I want to say hi to SoFlo. Hello, SoFlo. Thanks again for watching.
Yeah. Well, while you are looking for questions, I do want to say that we will not be recording next Friday because you are visiting Gabby.
Yes, I am. We are gonna hop in the car and make the drive across Texas, which is not it's not a quick jaunt like Rhode Island, for example, or Connecticut, or all those other smaller states. So yeah, we'll be in the car on at this time. We'll probably be getting fairly close, depending on when we leave. If we leave close to noon, then. But we'll definitely be much closer to Gabby. We're going to go see Gabby for part of her spring break. And I also, I've got some job stuff that I'm going to be looking for down there, but, had a job interview the other day. So yesterday. So went well. Fingers crossed. Not that I don't love doing this, as much as I can, but, I also would like to, be gainfully employed. So,
that is an important thing. Adulting is important.
I kind of figured Kelly's going to give her opinion on KAINE's hair when we do. I figure like the DarkDevil episode is going to be half of like us talking about KAINE.
Yeah. So I've touched on it in the past, but I will touch on it again. KAINE's hair is magical. Here it kind of looks very scruffy and not well kept up versus like in the past when we've seen him in the 616, his hair looks very luscious and he's from a herbal essences commercial, and it gets that way a little bit a little bit down the line, but right here it is very scraggly and messy, and he needs his herbal essences, which I don't think he's going to get in prison.
No. As a former correctional officer that used to give out soap every Thursday, once a week, they don't get.
But also, herbal essences does ruin your hair, so don't actually use that for your hair. I'm just saying in general because of the commercials.
Yeah, of the 90s. But now, if they are good prisoners, they can go to the commissary and get like shampoo and stuff. But I think it was like Head and Shoulders. So whatever like the state can buy in bulk is usually what happens. So Vinkman asked this a couple different times. Is that's supposed to be J. Jonah Jameson or Stan Lee? I wouldn't be surprised if it was supposed to be kind of a little homage to Stan, because Stan always kind of made the joke that Jonah was kind of a reference to him back in the comics. So maybe, but yeah, Jonah looks very old. He didn't age as it's 15 years down the road. Like he's not a young whippersnapper that in the 616. I think I also think Kelly Cantu said that Kane looked like he aged 40 years in 15, which if you have clone degeneration, you would.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely something that totally is happening. I mean, also just you're gonna kind of look that way if you've had like a rough life and you're kind of dealing with your own sins and past and homeless.
Don't put those together. Sins and past, not sins past, but sins and past.
Sins and past. Like I've cut that up. So yeah. But yeah.
Vinkman told me how to pronounce it's Mix Yetz Pittel Ik. I will try to work on that. Thank you, Vinkman, for your insight on how to say the level.
You to call him that thing. That one.
The imp from like the fifth dimension, I think, is where he's from in Superman. Ryan Reed just wanted to say hi. He's on a social media purge at the moment, but hopefully he'll be around more at the end of March. Okay. Moose always looks like a thumb, but the panel where they zoom in on his face just takes me out.
He just doesn't have a neck, okay? Like some people don't have necks. It happens.
Yeah, when they're built like a linebacker, or in his case, like an offensive lineman, they don't have necks. And like if you look at a classic guy that I always think of when I think of like offensive linemen and like being in media, it's a guy named Jeff Saturday. He was the center for the Indianapolis Colts during Peyton Manning's time as quarterback, and he lost a ton of weight when he got done with the playing. And like when he was playing, he had no neck, like he was just all shoulders like this. But then when he lost all the weight, it's like he actually gained a neck and doesn't look hardly anything like he did when he was playing. So Vinkman says some toy collectors are just plastic crack addicts. Yeah, it's true. When you become a Marvel Legends collector, it's like you're being initiated with drugs are bad, okay, kids. Every time Zach says Amarillo, I always think of the song "Is This the Way to Amarillo?" I'm surprised it was not Amarillo by Morning by George Strait. So that's what everybody else usually does. So Matt Unger says The Shadows, Kane's favorite place in the whole wide world, which is true. Marvel Comics #1 under Timely came out in 1939. So that's what they made me by the 6 years. Thank you, Matt, because I didn't even think about that. So Kane's homeless, which you would be too if you were an assassin murderer.
Yeah. It's not like he can, it's not like he has a social security number and can establish an identity.
He didn't have Seward Trainer to help him.
It's true.
Unlike Ben Reilly. So Vinkman does have a question. So this will be kind of our last one, looks like, unless somebody else throws one in here in the next few minutes. Do you remember what the first superhero comic book TV show and or cartoon you ever saw as a kid? For him, it was either the Ruby Spears Superman cartoon or the Adam West Batman series. I think it was the Adam West Batman series myself. I remember watching the Burton films, which I had no business watching as a kid, but I can't remember the first ones. I was into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was how I got into Spider-Man. That's part of my Spider-Man origin story, was because my dad didn't want me to be like, he's like, if we're gonna do, superheroes, let's do like actual humans instead of humanoid turtles. Which, okay, fine. And my mother has never forgiven my father ever since. But I wouldn't be doing this like if it wasn't for that. So yeah. What was yours, Kelly?
I think the first, like ultimately the first TV show or cartoon, um, Power Rangers or X-Men. I mean, they're both interchangeable because they came out around exactly the same time.
Yeah.
I would say definitely those. I mean, I'm a kid of the '90s. I'm the oldest, so it's not like there were older older kids around me. All my cousins were teenagers, essentially at that time. So it's not like I was watching their stuff. Although I can remember like some Star Wars toys that I definitely should not remember and stuff like that. So that would really be like the first time I remember it. But see, there's also the whole like my dad brought me up on Batman and watching the old Batman TV show, Wonder Woman show, Hulk, like the '70s Hulk.
Yeah.
I know I've seen like original episodes of the live action Spider-Man. I know that we had episodes of the '60s TV show somehow that we watched because I used to make fun of the first episode because there's some animation glitches and it's really funny. But I can't really fully remember the jokes. I just remember like me and my brother would make fun of it. There's a lot there. Like I can't really pinpoint. This is something, like where people are like, well, what was your first Spider-Man interaction, or what was like? I really can't pinpoint anything from that time because I was so young, but I was already kind of indoctrinated in this aspect because it's stuff like my earliest memories. I can remember my dad playing the '60s Batman theme song on the guitar.
Yeah.
Turns out that was all he knew how to play on the guitar. I remember going to the comic book shop as young as I could read, and that was something that they used to help me read. The comic book strips. I do remember a slight time where I grew up, it really was only for like maybe a few weeks in my brain, so maybe a few months in real time, where they did have the Spider-Man comic strip, and so on and so forth. So I've always been around it, and I just don't know. I can't really tell you what was first and what wasn't first. It was just all there, and it was all. I always had access to these characters in some form of media.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I remember the Batman animated series, X-Men, Power Rangers. I remember being super excited because I got the I remember watching the first season of Spider-Man on the animated series, and one of my fondest memories of my being at my grandparents one time because my sister was super sick when it was released, so my parents were out of town with my sister. So I was staying with my grandparents. I remember watching the first two episodes of the Alien Costume Saga because they aired it. I missed it the week before, but then they re-aired it, the part one before part two, and so I remember watching both of those. It's with at my grandparents' house, and so I do have a lot of memories of like the '90s show. That's why CSC had those clips from the '90s show in our theme, because obviously they had that Clone Saga at the very end of the series. But yeah, so definitely the Batman TV, the Batman animated series. My dad then taped like a marathon of the Adam West series on the Family Channel that they ran one weekend. And so I watched that a lot. And so yeah, it's all that like I don't think there's like this pivotal point where it's like this is where I like superheroes. I think it's just like it was that transition from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Batman, Spider-Man, and X-Men, really. So that's like you and I both being that child of the '90s definitely has that influence. Bruce, Well, Wetch says I saw the Batman TV show first, and the Spider-Man cartoon shortly thereafter. So, yeah, it's a really interesting time when you go back and look at something that
Well,
would never happen today.
oh, I mean, at the time, local syndication was a lot more prevalent than the way it is now.
Yes.
So that's also a large part of it. It's like you might remember seeing the Adam West show in syndication, but it was probably just your local TV channel back when the news was actually handled by a local person running it versus now everything's in a corporation. Like I distinctly remember my dad's side jobs was working in radio, and
Right.
I can remember being a small kid and knowing the owner of the radio station, and when she sold it, she sold it to Cumulus, and going from that to then having 5 stations all on one floor in a bigger building versus the little old radio center.
Mhm.
That was that was a big deal, and that's kind of now everything is got to stay afloat. Everything has stayed corporate, and that's also taken a lot of freedom out of what they can play and cannot play and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do have Binkman's original email here if you want me to read it.
Yeah.
It is a review, our feedback, podcast feedback, and no, not the feedback you were experiencing on the last episode. So apparently, oh yeah, from the soundboard that I literally made you rip out before recording because it was giving us the same issue today.
Yeah. I'm gonna. We are going like the next few days. I'm gonna work on. There's some settings I can kind of play with, so that way people aren't hearing themselves over the headphones.
All right,
So
so let me read this really quick. All right, so hello, Kelly and Zach. As I write this, I'm eagerly awaiting the next live stream, and I thought I'd drop you a line about the show. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to suck up or anything, but hearing Kelly talk about MAYDAY genuinely makes me happy. Whether experiences cosplaying a Spider Girl or talking about how much MAYDAY meant to her growing up, it never fails to warm the cockles of my cold, dead heart. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's enough of that. On to the podcast itself. When reviewing the books, your enthusiasm for the characters, stories, and lore is infectious. The discussions are always informative and entertaining. But at the same time, you're not afraid to point out flaws in the stories that stick in your craw, which is a good thing because I prefer critical analysis that's honest and objective rather than looking at everything with rose tinted glasses, trying to adhere to a positivity for positivity's sake mindset, which I think can be just as bad as extremely negative rage baiting reviews. My big takeaway from Make Mine Mayday is that it's not just important for young girls to have role models like Spider-Girl to look up to. It's that characters and stories need to be of the highest quality to keep them coming back for more. At the end of the day, it isn't that what entertainment's all about. I'm looking forward to the next episode. Keep up the amazing work, and until Hasbro makes a Dragon King Build-A-Figure, make mine today. Sincerely, your pal Vinkman. Thank you, Vinkman, for that. I really do appreciate it. I mean, my thing is I don't know. Like, I feel like I do look at a lot of Spider Girl stuff with rose tinted glasses. It's just if I do see something that I know wouldn't fly today, or something that I can remember being mad about then, I do want to point it out because I'm not a fan that's just like, oh my god, yes, everything is great. There are flaws like with anything,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that being able to point that out and just kind of poking at it, is important because as we established today, where I was talking about May's flaws and not being transparent with people she needs to be transparent to, they're not perfect people. It's one of the things on why Marvel is so great. They don't write these characters to be perfect.
They're
DC,
human.
yeah, DC eventually also adopted this. Like all of the superheroes, the reasons why we love them is because we relate to them. We're not going to relate to them if they're 100% perfect all the time.
Well, yeah, and to kind of dovetail on that point too, one of the reasons that me and Kelly, for me, one of my motivations for wanting to do this show, when we did the old Mayday show, it was just because I love Mayday. This one is different because back when I started that old show, I didn't have a kid. I didn't have a daughter specifically. and I didn't have somebody that I was sharing Spider-Girl with, I understand the importance of this show, and telling the story. One of the things I like about our network of shows, whether it's CSC, whether it's Spec Radio, is that we tell the story behind the story.
And that was my thing here. I want us to, because of stuff like, sorry, as I'm just interrupting you and running off with it, but it ties into the fact too. It's like, we kind of all knew at some point the message board was going to go down. So I wanted to make sure that we had it on record somewhere that we could listen to and bring back and come back. Because that's one of my things is like, regardless of, what the future may or may not hold, I'm not going to take these episodes offline, if at all possible. To me, they are important for time capsules. They're important for remembering the important things about this fandom and what makes the fandom so special, and what makes the comic special and the character special, and the moment in time that it holds. I want to be able to keep that around for future generations so they understand exactly what Mayday stands for, because I feel like Marvel themselves have lost that a little bit.
Yeah. And again, I wanted a show that we could be proud of. Not that I wasn't proud of the old show, but maybe make that clear as day.
No.
But I wanted a show that I could sit there and as we're reading the books, if my daughter wants to go listen to me, because my daughter doesn't get to see me that often right now. Hopefully that'll change sooner rather than later because of the distance that we have between us. But as she gets older, if she wants to read these books and then listen to me review those things, I can give that to my daughter. Yeah. And so, it's a, for us, it's both, in both cases, it's personal, but just like with CSC, we call things like we see it. We don't try to sugarcoat things. And I think that there is an authenticity that is brought to that, because you do have a lot of people that do stuff like this out there that they come across as inauthentic when they just say, oh, everything that this person does is great. Is just great. It's all great. Well, even I fall into that sometimes. Most of the time, JMD Mateus stuff, I'm going to say is great because I really enjoy that run. But there's still some flaws to it. But you got to point out the flaws because those imperfections kind of give it that charm that is so great about the era. And Spider-Girl is an era. I feel
literally is an era.
Yeah, the MC2 is an era of its time. And so now that we're in the second year, we'll eventually cover Fantastic Five and Wild Thing, and then we'll get to the other miniseries later on, like Buzz and DarkDevil. But, this is definitely something, and that, like we say, it's an important thing to cover, and it may seem like we're reiterating, we're being a broken record here, but it's good to always sometimes reiterate that, our motivations and stuff. So,
I mean, like this series started when I was just before I turned 8 years old. Really, I was 7 when F-45 came out, and the series started just before I turned 8. And Spider-Girl: The End happened right after I turned 20.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a long time. That's a long time to have a character consistently in your life with new stories. And obviously, we take certain characters like Batman and Spider-Man for granted, but no one expected this character to last. No one expected this story to last. Obviously, as we talked about, issue 17. And, it's very rare, especially for female-driven comics, character-driven comics, to last. I mean, we can see that in Spider-Woman. We can see it in the Spider-Gwen.
She-Hulk.
The moment Patsy became Hellcat. There's a lot of things, and it's not necessarily like I do feel like there's a large part that has a lot to do with marketing. And here, like, you know, that's one of the main things that we say about Spider-Girl all the time is that Marvel didn't know what they had. They didn't know how to market it. And I do agree with that. But there is that precedent of this is a boys club. And
Yeah.
and she stood toe to toe for a long time in a very male centered, male dominated area, especially like with these jokes that we're talking about and the comedy and the social aspect. And she felt real and genuine and authentic to being a teenager and to being a real human female. I mean, like I identify with her a lot on these things. And you know, we make the jokes like where does Kelly start? Where does Kelly end and Mayday start? Stuff like that, because you know I've always identified with her, and I'm sure a large part of me has adopted certain things from the series. But she means a lot, and even if you know, like obviously we're not expecting this to go super viral or anything, but want to make sure that there is a record somewhere so people can access the comics if they don't have access to grab the comics. I want them to have these rundowns. I want them to understand the history behind these issues and where the fandom was at the time and why you have the series as long as you do and why it's still important today and how she resonates still today. I mean, my goodness, you know, we have Kelly in the comments and she's rereading it time. I know a ton of people that are rereading Girl for the first, or not rereading it, but they're reading it for the first time, and they weren't born when this started, and you know they weren't born until after 2000. So they're getting to read these for the first time and experience her, thanks to things like Marvel Unlimited and the digest and everything like that. And I really love hearing their thoughts and their opinions on this. And I'm very happy that I am able to experience it with them.
Yeah, absolutely. A last couple of questions or a couple comments. Bruce says, "This is my first time watching your show, Zach. Kelly mentioned it on Instagram today. I'm glad I got here even though late. Thank you, Bruce, for your watching. And like I say, just hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We do Spidey Dude Experience.
Subscribe, hit the bell.
Yeah, hit the bell. We do Spidey Dude Experience on Wednesdays usually, and then Fridays we do Make My Mayday. And there may be more coming soon. I'm still doing some development on some of the other shows.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if I'm going to do them live or if I'm going to do them pre-recorded. But Kelly then asked, are we ever going to do an MC2 Peter versus Renew Your Vows characterization discussion? I think we
should. I do think we should. I do think that we should probably cover Renew Your Vows at some point later on down the line once we can kind of get to it timeline-wise. Because we will need it to discuss Spider-Girls to an extent, so maybe it could be a Patreon discussion.
Yeah.
Or just one episode overall. But yeah, no, I think that discussion is important because that's a large part of where there is a disconnect how Peter would be as a dad. And I personally agree with a lot of Peter's characterization in Renew Your Vows. So yeah, I mean, they're vastly different people and they're vastly different creations of their time too.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that the Peter in Renew Your Vows is starting as like, well, what would a cool dad be like in in
2015,
like 2018, versus what would a responsible, serious dad who's gone through hell and back be?
Exactly. I was looking at our spreadsheet. Somewhere we'll probably cover the Earth X books. I
did not write it in the spreadsheet because to me, I think Earth X is a little bit different. I don't think that it's not the same May.
Maybe we do that like as a Patreon episode.
Yeah, that could be something. I would have to really reread all of it. And Earth
Yeah, me
X
too.
is a Earth X is a different beast. Where like I generally feel very jazzed and excited after reading Spider Girl. I feel very excited after reading Earth X. They're still good. It's just it's a very different feeling you get from it. So it feels daunting to read to have to read Earth X, but we should definitely discuss it. Maybe that could be a fan, because this is one of the things. One of my ideas for the show was to always have fans come in and talk about things. We kind of did not get what I was like the feedback I was expecting for some side books. But if you come to me with an idea that you want to discuss as a fan, just let me know. And if you have other fans you want to discuss it with, let us know, and we'll do a round table kind of discussion. We'll schedule it in, and it can be a little break from all this reading and reviewing and dissecting, and we'll just kind of go into it, because I know, like, on Twitter, I mean, I have we were making jokes about I think this is with Kelly, actually. We were making jokes about um, what was his character when Pete Normie create that super
The wild card.
wild card.
Yeah.
So the joke was like, did he steal the wig from MJ? And I love those stupid fan canons where like it doesn't, like, the best fan canon is the thing that doesn't change anything about the plot whatsoever, but it just, like, it makes it that much more enjoyable, because like all I could picture, because I was like, he didn't tell MJ that he was doing this at all, because she would have been like, you need to be honest with your daughter, because that's my thing, is they all act like she messed up royally, but I'm like, they went behind her back, created this whole persona, which had to take at least weeks, to make all the tech and all that other stuff, and then they have the audacity to go, well, we were just doing it to, like, keep you distracted, because you were going to get hurt, or you weren't acting in everybody's best interest. And it's like, okay, but you two dorks got together and came up with that outfit.
Were you watching like episodes of Batman and the Joker threw out one of his cards and been like, "Hey, that's a really good idea. We should just like or are they playing poker and saying, this King of Hearts is would be a really great unique design."
Yeah,
that's a question.
They were bonding, and it's like, I know they were bonding, but like the whole thing that I can just picture is like, Peter's like, hey babe, I need to borrow this wig. Like, why? No reason, nothing. Actually, Normie needs it. I'm just being supportive. Like,
why does Normie? That just leads down a further big, like, more adult rabbit hole that my mind eventually went to, and I'm just like, okay. Yeah, so that's definitely a question for Ron Friends that next time he's on, we'll have to be like, hey, wild card, go. Why?
Well, because I mean, and it's the same kind of like jokey little things. Like, since we know he's a Disney file from the Venom issue, I feel like he's definitely listening to like Be Prepared in his Gregorian electro music video warehouse.
Yes.
So,
I would, if I had the soundboard and it wasn't, having Kelly hear herself, I would have gotten me a clip of Be Prepared, but then I don't want to get demonetized, even though we're not even monetized, but it's fine.
Yeah, let's not. But you know what I mean? I love those fan canons. I would love to have a fan panel where we get a bunch of fans. Actually, honestly, send us your really silly fan canon to the voicemail, and then we'll play it.
Yes, and I'll play it.
I want to hear from Frogoat. I want to hear from Binkman. Kelly, give us a call and give us another one. I want to hear really silly, stupid fan canons, and maybe we can play it off that way, and that can be one of our fan discussions for broader topics.
Yeah,
but then we can play
something that's a little bit lighter episode, smaller episode, because obviously this episode was big.
Yeah, And it's going to be this way because that's what we've learned. You get your money's worth when you have a Tom Falco comic.
Yeah, it's either we do less issues or yeah. So, okay, so I think that kind of discussion wraps things up. Thank you again to everybody that participated in tonight's episode. Venkman and Matt and Bruce and Kelly, the other Kelly. Thank you guys for being a part of the episode. And if you, again, want to be a part of the episode, you can always leave us a voicemail at that phone number, 818-925-6631. Be sure to say, hey, I'm leaving a voicemail for Make My Mayday. Here's my headcanon. Now, if it cuts you off, because I think there's a 3-minute limit because it's a voicemail line, just leave a second one. I will edit them together. And so when we play them, it'll be like seamless. So, just pick up where you left off if you're leaving a big detailed fan canon. You can always leave us email at makemymayday@gmail.com or SpideyDudeRadioNetwork@gmail.com. Just CC me. That way, in case we have like a situation like tonight where
you probably CC Zach because Zach uses his email far more than I use mine. So sometimes you might have to sit there and go, hey, Kelly, I sent an email.
Yeah, so that way just CC me on, if you're sending it to Kelly, CC me there, and that way I get it, and we're both all on the same page. Be sure to go to the r/Spider-Girl group to check that out. As always, we have our Patreon at patreon.com/SpideyDudeNetwork. Then you can follow us at our various social medias, at Spidey Dude Radio on Twitter, at Spidey Dude Network on Facebook and Instagram, so that we're easy to find there. Also, Twitch, which I'm going to be working on the Twitch channel over probably this next week, because now I'm mostly caught up on everything. So yeah, definitely check those out. Be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcatcher if you're listening to us on the audio versions. And like, share, and subscribe. And if you follow us on Facebook, be sure to hit reminders when we throw out the reminders on Facebook. So if you happen to miss it on YouTube, you can always go back and watch us on Facebook too. So thanks again for listening, and we will see you guys next time here on Make My Mayday. On behalf of Kelly McDaniel and myself.
Also, just before we leave, Venkman did have a question on what issues we were covering next episode. So we're not recording next week, but the week after, so the next Friday after, what is that, the 19th?
Yes, the 19th.
We're going to come back on the 19th, and we should be covering 18 through 23, 24?
Yes.
Somewhere around there.
Whatever's in the trade, the digest.
We're going to get there. So thank you guys so much. Enjoy the little break you get from us, but we will be back on the 19th, so that way we can continue to make ours Mayday.
See you next time, guys.